Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our July 27th City Council meeting. If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. Stacy, if you could please call the roll.
Okay, Councilman Gary Donovan.
Councilman Gary Donovan, Councilman at large.
Councilwoman Colleen O'Connor.
Councilwoman Colleen O'Connor, Council at Large here.
Councilwoman Bridget Hosky.
Councilwoman Bridget Hosky, 1st District, present.
Councilman William X. Conlon. I see you. Councilwoman Liz Johnston.
Councilwoman.
Councilman Mitch Galagnano.
Councilwoman Mitchell, 4th District, present.
Councilwoman Robin Hamilton.
Councilwoman Robin Hamilton, 5th District, here.
Councilman Peter Massaro. Did he appear yet? I don't see him. He's temporarily absent. Councilwoman Trenae McGee.
Councilwoman Trenae McGee, 7th District, present.
Councilwoman Crystal Finelli is absent. Councilman Robert Bruno.
Councilman Robert Bruno, 9th District, present.
Councilman Barry Lee Cohen.
Councilman Barry Lee Cohen, 10th District, present.
And Chairman Ronald Quagliani.
Councilman Ron Quagliani, Council at Large, present. Thank you, Stacy. If I could ask everybody to make sure that they stay on mute until they'd like to talk. We have a series of public hearings this evening. The first one is the Finance Committee public hearing for the CDA program year 46 budget. Will be Councilwoman Hosky.
The time is now 6:48, and your public hearing on CDA program year 46 is in session. It is my understanding that we don't have any submissions to be read. So the time is now 6:49, and your public hearing on CDA program year 46 is closed.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hosky. Next up for public hearing is the Redevelopment Committee public hearing pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 7163E, sale of city property for 100 Wilson Avenue, 122A Wilson Avenue, 124 Wilson Avenue, 742 Washington Avenue, 245 Front Avenue, 1 Forest Road, 239 Front Avenue, 239 Front Avenue rear / Helm Street, 26 Harold Street. I'll turn it over to the redevelopment chair, Councilwoman O'Connor.
Good evening. It is now 6:49. The redevelopment committee on the public hearing on all the different properties will now begin. I know we have quite a few letters to be read.
Okay, yes, we do have quite a few. So if everyone would just please bear with me. We have our first letter from Valerie Forte Vitale, an Allentown resident for 43 years. She says, there is so much an Allentown native could say about the demolition and rebuilding of the historic and once thriving village center of Allentown. I don't live in Allentown or West Haven anymore, but I would be remiss if I did not express my concern about the demise of the Allentown Library, my parents' legacy. My mother, Loretta Forte, was the librarian of the Allentown Branch Library for a total of 34 years. My father, Albert Forte, was served on the library board, the Village Improvement Association, for approximately 40 years. During their time serving the West Haven library system, they witnessed the first expansion of the main library, the building of the Ora Mason Library, and the relocation of the Allentown branch from the old Forest School building on Cellini Place to the beautiful refurbished Louis Pantino Library, where it is located now, in the remaining wing of Forest School. My mother personally convinced Mr. Pantino to donate funds to that project, as he had for the first library in Allentown. Both of my parents were graduates of Forest School as well as West Haven High School. They remained Allentown residents for 78 years. My father served as West Haven City Clerk in addition to his years of commitment to improving the lives of Allentown and West Haven residents. He served on many volunteer committees that secured benefits for the community, too many to list. Ironically, he started his working life as a young man as a projectionist in the Park Theater. My mother was best known as a mentor to Allentown children of 3 generations. She encouraged the young people in Allentown through her work at the library, guided their school studies and related research, and helped them work towards college admissions. Most of them were first members of their families to attend college. She directed the community to relevant and enjoyable reading experiences, curating a collection of noteworthy literature that was popular among the avid readers in the greater West Haven community. Diversity within the library system staffing began with hiring practices in Allentown. My parents were active in civil rights advocacy. Together, they worked to retain funding when the city looked to cut the library budget again and again. Throughout the page system of hiring young people to assist with clerical library tasks, my mother trained and guided young people, some of whom eventually went to library science careers, including former head librarian Connie Sacco, also an Allentown resident. The library in Allentown has a history of providing access to relevant and evolving services and a reputation for welcoming residents and meeting their needs. We did not call our community underserved, but Allentown was always the home to underserved populations and the last community to receive improvements and support. My parents tried for a lifetime to bridge that gap with advocacy and hard work. The Allentown Green, adjacent to the library property for nearly 90 years, was gifted to the community by the Allen family to remain as a park. It doesn't look very park-like now. Once mature trees are destroyed, the historic landscape is diminished. Once monuments are disturbed, there is a pervasive atmosphere of disrespect for a community's heritage and for generations past. Not only did we memorialize the war dead of our community at services on the Green, we honored the firefighters and former police chief at the Howell site. I do not understand the blatant, misguided reconfiguring of this public village trust. The scale of the architectural style which has overtaken Allentown is questionable. The destruction of the Green is something no future concrete plaza can replace. We not only placed wreaths annually at the monuments, we knew the men who labored to build the concrete and brick platforms on which they rested, their work offered as a part of the tribute. We stood on the Allentown Green at attention and or with bowed heads as each monument was dedicated. We stood beside our grandparents, parents, aunts, uncles, and neighbors. Neighborhoods evolve or are changed by zoning, neglect, and poor planning. Monuments unique to a community's history should remain. I cannot imagine another town or center of West Haven being so radically changed, but this letter is about my concerns for the library, which is also a monument to community pride, to learning betterment, as well as to my parents and the village of Allentown. The removal of the library signals that development at Allentown does not serve the community, and there is still a community. The lack of funding to library programs reduces the possibilities of providing services. It is a way of diminishing the need for a building, a staff. If nothing is going on, no one will come. Allentown still needs a vital library. Nothing about the idea of closing or moving the library or the way the process was accomplished seems like a good plan to me. My parents rest in peace at the edges of Allentown, knowing that in their lifetime, despite what has happened, they did the best they could for Allentown. I write in defense of their hard work. Signed, Valerie Forte Vitale. Our second letter is from Judith Petrillo. And Robert Petrillo. My name is Robert Petrillo, and my family has lived in Allentown since my grandparents were alive. We have enjoyed the area for so many years, but things are changing. I and my family have always used the libraries. We now pay over $9,000 in taxes, and we want some parts of town left alone. In the Allentown Green, the trees were taken down. The area looks more like the Boston Post Road than our beautiful part of town. I know progress has to go on, but to take away our library is so disappointing and hurtful. Everything seems to be done for the college, but nothing for the residents. We demand that our library at least be left alone. The college pays us low taxes while we support their emergency needs and anything else a normal taxpayer would expect without paying taxes. We want our library left alone so some semblance will be left for us to enjoy. And
Stacy.
oh yeah, the address is on this one is 11 North Forest Circle. Sorry about that. And then we have a letter from Phyllis Boucher from 341 Berwick Lane, West Haven. To whom it may concern, I am writing about the proposed sale of 1 Forest Road, site of the Louis Pantano Library. Having a convenient branch library significantly contributes to my quality of life as an Allentown resident. Some of that enjoyment has been diminished this past year with the construction of an adjacent apartment complex. The library's main parking lot was taken over by the construction crew. The back lot is inconvenient and inadequate, especially on days when there is a book group. Now we are told that the building will be sold. I am very concerned about the consequences of such a sale, with the worst case scenario being not having a branch library. Many questions come to mind. Will the Pantano Library be forced to close? Will the contract with the buyer include provisions for the library? Will the library have to pay rent to the new owner? Will the amount be written into the contract? Will the new owner be making improvements to the building, and will that necessitate closure of the library? If the library needs to move into another building, will the town make space available? Will the library have to pay for renovations of a new space, or will a developer do that? Please consider the needs of Allentown residents when making your decision, both residents from whom the library is an enhancement and for those who rely on the computers and other resources they are out of financial necessity. And we have another letter from Karen Shanley of 2 Cedar Lane in West Haven. The goal of West Haven City Council must be to make our city stronger. I implore the council to consider the negative impact closing the Pantano Library branch will have on our city. The positive effect of public libraries on communities is well documented. I personally have benefited from the public library throughout my life, 63 years to date. The enrichment available cannot be overstated. To young children in their preschool years, school support, digital and computer access to those who do not have it in their home, as well as access to health and community services information and the comfort of social connection and reading to adults and elders. To take these supports away from the Allentown section of West Haven will weaken that community. I am fortunate I can easily drive to library services anywhere in our city, on the internet, or visit our statewide partners. Many of our citizens, particularly children and many elders, however, cannot. They rely on the proximity of the library to access services. As a social worker providing mental health services to our older adults, I have heard firsthand through telehealth sessions over these past 4 months how some of my clients have been further isolated without access to their libraries. For some, this has been an inconvenience, for others, a major loss. Thankfully, there is now a partial restoration of services. I have wondered what lessons 2020 is teaching us as we cope with COVID and racial issues. One important lesson has to be awareness of our connection to each other and the community impact of events. While Allentown is a community that is undergoing some revitalization with the increasing presence of UNH, it is still home to those who need the library services. I ask you to preserve the Piantano Library as a community resource and not to let the building be sold to community developers. And we have a letter from Maria Dania, 690 Forest Road, Unit 362. To the members of the West Haven City Council, my name is Maria Dania. I reside at 690 Forest Road, Unit 362 in West Haven. I have concerns and questions in regards to the proposed sale of the building at 1 Forest Road. I understand that the sale of the building will mean more tax revenues for the city. However, what will the impact be on the Allentown Library? Are there provisions for the library in the contract for the sale if the building, and if not, will the residents of Allentown lose this vital resource? How would a city in dire economic straits finance the acquisition of a new building and all the renovations needed? I would hope that the town include provisions in the contract that protect the library's future. And then we have a letter from Mary M. Galvin, retired state's attorney, 2 Cedar Lane, West Haven. I'm writing as a citizen and voter of the city of West Haven to strongly urge the mayor and city council to reconsider the poorly thought out decision to sell the Allentown Public Library building. My concerns center around crime prevention and local community, the ethics and legality of the sale, and the appearance of improper political retribution against the library. Having served this community as a prosecutor for 30 years and as the state's attorney for 20 years, I'm in a unique position to evaluate the impact of a neighborhood library on our youth and the prevention of crime in our city. As a library is the one place a child can safely recreate and study away from other less positive influences. The Allentown Library has served this function for years. It is one of the reasons my pioneering neighborhood prosecution program focused so heavily on Allentown. The library also serves as a community center with many varied enrichment activities for the residents of the area. We have to all agree that racism is not only highly unethical, but is also illegal when it results in government action causing racial discrimination. The choice of the Piantano branch for elimination by the city of West Haven will result in desperate impact on our citizens of color. Whether intended or not, this is the impact of the sale, and it's punctuated by the fact that the West Haven Black Coalition has long been given office space in the building by the library. One of the not-so-hidden racial impacts of the sale is the loss of that space to the coalition. This is a poor choice of timing on the part of the city, given the current climate in our city and in the country. The board which runs the library are the fiduciaries for the restricted endowment. There has been well-documented pressure from some city officials for the board to breach their fiduciary duty and break the terms of the endowment to fund daily operations. This would be illegal. Such pressure just serves to compound the appearance of impropriety stemming from the recent rejection of the library's board's highest bid to buy the building. In light of the above, awarding a contract to lowest bidder, resulting in less money to the city of West Haven, has the appearance of impropriety and the scent of political retribution for not turning the library's endowment to politicians' whims. I am confident that the City Council has educated all of you on the Cypress Doctrine, which deals with restricted charitable endowments, and on your personal liabilities in the event of civil suits or prosecutions for illegal discrimination. I am passionate about the issue because as a prosecutor, I have seen the positive impact this library has on the Allentown community. As a history buff, I note that the libraries go first in totalitarian societies. In the interest of full disclosure, I have a relative who serves on the library board. I am proud of his service, but write this letter out of my own passion for the library and concern for the law. As public officials, you owe a duty of due diligence in deciding important issues like this one. I trust that as a basic first step towards due diligence, you have at least visited the Lewis Pantano branch of the West Haven Library. I trust you will look at the issue of racial disparity. I trust you will do the right thing, save the library. And now we have a letter from Patricia Fusco, 311 Shingle Hill Road, West Haven. I'm writing in opposition to the sale of One Forest Road, West Haven, Connecticut. This, in effect, leaves the Lewis Pantano Library, the Allentown branch of the West Haven Public Library, without a home. Residents who live in the Allentown area use that branch on a regular basis, and many are not able to get to the other branches because of their lack of transportation. I taught at Carrigan Intermediate School for many years, and many of my students use the Pantano Library branch of the library because they could walk there. Many of their parents worked or did not have cars. The Pantano branch was accessible and they were able to do research, use the computers, and borrow books, which they would not have been able to do if the Pantano were not there. Many of the students participate in the activities that the library offered as well. It was for many of them their lifeline as a safe place to go after school. The Pantano branch also serves the seniors who live at the John Preet building, as well as in the Allentown area. Also, it is a walk of about 4 blocks from the center. They can get there to participate in the book club discussions, use the computers, and borrow books. Closing the Pantano loop will mean that these seniors will have to take a bus or drive to the main branch. This will be a hardship for many of them. Many do not have internet access because they cannot afford it. My understanding is that the Village Improvement Association bid on the property and offered a considerable amount more money than the bid that was accepted by the city. Why would a city that was in dire financial straits take a bid that was so much lower? This does not make sense to me as a taxpayer. I have heard it said that they can find somewhere else to move, maybe the University of New Haven. First, moving to the University of New Haven is not feasible. Parking alone would make that prohibitive since their own employees have to park down the hill at the juncture First Avenue and Campbell Avenue. As for other locations, there are none that are centrally located and convenient as the Lewis Pantano Library is. This will put the residents who rely on that branch at a disadvantage. I consider it an equity issue. Not only did the redevelopment of that area take the Allentown Green, which was used by the residents in that area and dedicated to local heroes, now they would be taking their library. Critics also are grumbling because the VIA has an endowment that would be used to buy the building. Many who do not understand the terms of the endowment feel that the money should be used to pay for the everyday operating costs of the West Haven Public Library system. The endowment money has strings on it. The donors specifically did not want their monies to be used for everyday bills. The money was to be used for improvements and upgrades, as it has been. Computers, a wireless network that gives residents access to the internet at no cost, better lighting, furniture, and improved security have all come from the endowment money. The taxpayers of West Haven have been saved from having to fund that, and frankly, much of this could not have been done without the endowment monies. In closing, I ask that you reconsider the sale of One Forest Road to the group that underbid the VIA. Please consider all the residents of West Haven who rely on this branch. It is an awfully sad misconception that libraries simply check books in and out. The library is the heart of a community, and without a librarian, it is but an empty shell. Jarrett J. Kroska, an author and illustrator. And we have a letter from Andrea Jones from 477 Savin Avenue, West Haven. I am writing to express my concern over yet another attempt to scale back the city's library services. Our libraries provide many services to our residents and should be properly maintained and funded so they can continue to help our community. Please do not let this library slip away from our grasp as this will leave a permanent mark on our ability to support and serve the population. And we have a letter from Catherine Matho, 75 Enright Street. Dear Mayor Rossi, as a resident of Allentown, I am against the sale of the library. This is about community versus profit. It seems the Allentown section of town always gets the boot. I lived on the West Shore for years before moving across town. I was shocked that our mill rate was higher, although the West Shore is the more expensive side of town to live in. I was surprised services were less on this side of town. From the post office to getting plowed later, than the West Shore, for example, I still have friends on that side of town that have gotten plowed the day of the storm, whereas we had to wait 2 to 3 days. I called the then mayor to complain. And where did our senior center go? Downstairs, where Allentown residents don't have the same access. I can go on, but won't waste either of our time. We need our library updated, not sold or rebuilt somewhere else, as suggested that it will take years if that all happens. Local Allentown residents depend on the already limited services our library offers. And we have a letter from Laura Toole, 64 Mohawk Drive, West Haven. Dear Mr. DeMassa and the West Haven City Council, I'm writing to express my opposition to the sale of the building that houses the Louis Pantano Library in Allentown. As a lifelong resident of West Haven, I lived in the Center District when my children were young. We used both libraries. Both the main branch and Allentown were within a short distance from our home. The one in the center was our main stop. However, many popular books for their age groups were checked out frequently, which meant longer waits. We found the Pantano branch. It opened up a much larger section of books and other valuable library services available for all age groups. It would be a shame to lose this additional resource for both education as well as just the love of reading. I hope the City Council will reconsider this. With the 5,700 students currently enrolled in our school system, all 3 branches will be necessary to serve the residents of West Haven. Sorry about that. We have a letter from Karen Leach, 45 Chase Lane in West Haven. I support the sale of the property. The West Haven Library System needs funding. I support the West Haven Public Library and donate during their campaigns, but believe that for a town of only 10 square miles, West Haven does not need 3 library branches. Why not consolidate, and even if it means a new capital campaign for a larger building, consolidate the libraries into 1 library and save the city money. Milford is 25 square miles and has 1 library. I previously lived in East Lyme, Connecticut, 35 square miles with 1 library. Please sell the Forest Road property and consolidate West Haven's library system. We have a letter from Gwen Haley, 690 Forest Road, West Haven. To the members of the West Haven City Council, my name is Gwen Haley and I reside at 690 Forest Road, Unit 362 in West Haven. As a resident of Allentown, I have been following in the news articles about the sale of 1 Forest Road, and I am interested because that building is the home of my library. I am one of many senior citizens who rely on the Pantano Library, and I have many questions. I hope you will be able to answer them during this hearing. Will the city's contract with the buyer include provisions for the library? Will the library have to pay rent to the new owner? Will the amount of rent be written into the contract? Will the new owner be making improvements to the building, and will that necessitate a period of closure for the library? Will the library be forced to move into another building, and if so, will the town make space available? Will the library have to pay for renovations of a new space? The biggest question is still the taxpayers of Allentown have their library building taken away. Will the Pantano Library be forced to close? I trust that you will make decisions that take into account the people who are impacted by your decisions and not just the finances involved. And we have a letter from Diane Milano, 49 White Street. To whom it may concern, while I understand the sale of the Allentown Library may seem fiscally responsible for the city, I believe the access to the resources supplied by the library also be a concern for the city. Before the sale of Allentown Library, a financially equal alternative must be in place to ensure the constant continuation of services to the community. Until a mutually agreed upon arrangement between all parties, including the library board, is in place, I do not support the sale to any organization. And this is from Susan Walker, the recording secretary of the Village Improvement Association. Statement concerning the sale of One Forest Road. One Forest Road is not an abandoned building that the city of West Haven decided to sell. It is the home of the Pantano branch of the West Haven Public Library System. It is the home of a vibrant, busy part of the West Haven community that serves the citizens of Allentown. Residents used the library for computers to apply for jobs. Children used it to supplement their school libraries. Senior citizens found books and other materials to enjoy and educate themselves. Preschoolers enjoyed story hours, etc. When the city decided to sell the property, a small ad was placed in the newspaper giving a short window over the holiday season to place a bid. The Village Improvement Association was not notified of the sale. Fortunately, one of our members saw the ad. The Village Improvement Association showed its commitment to Allentown by placing a bid of $500,000 at the beginning of January. The developer Acorn also placed a bid of $270,000. At the close of the bid process, the Village Improvement Agency heard nothing from the city as to who would be awarded the bid. It seemed to us that it should be a foregone conclusion that the group that offered $230,000 more should have won the bid. The city is in financial woes, and this plan would allow Allentown to keep its library. Nothing was heard from the city for a long time, in part due to the COVID crisis. When it came to voting at the city council on the bid, it was awarded to Acorn, who upped their bid to $325,000. This was still $175,000 less than a village improvement bid. The city said that the Acorn had the first right of refusal on the bid, a fact that was not mentioned in the ad. The Village Improvement Association is now faced with finding a new home for the library in the Allentown area or paying rent, the amount of which has yet to be mentioned, for 3 years. At the end of 3 years, the Village Improvement Association would still need to look for a new home. The Blake Building was shown to us as a possibility, but that was sold to another developer before we were told it was for sale. I'm asking you to help the Village Improvement Association keep a presence in Allentown. Reconsider the sale of One Forest Road if it has not been finalized. Do not deny Allentown a library branch. And I think that this was read already from a Diane Milano, 49 White Street. This might be a duplicate. While I understand the sale of the Allentown Library may seem fiscally responsible for the city, I believe the access to the resources supplied by the library also be a concern for the city. Before the city, I did read it already. Yeah, I thought so. I recognize the name. Sorry about that. Okay, this one is from Patricia Donnelly, 392 Elm Street, C2, West Haven, members of the City Council. The history of the Village Improvement Agency and City Council with regards to the construction at University Place is one of broken promises and misinformation. The Village Improvement Agency became aware in 2016/2017 that the parking spaces on Shalini Place were sold to the Acorn Group without a public hearing. I was startled one afternoon when I went to attend the Pantano Book Club to find the gate leading to the second floor was open and a gentleman was walking down the stairs. When I questioned him about why he was there, I was informed that Acorn was using the second floor as its field office. When I spoke to the council about that, I was told that Acorn was being charged market-based rent for the usage. I did not hear an accounting of this income in the budget hearings. In the 2018, the parking lot was closed to library users. Parking was only permitted behind the library, necessitating a walk to the only public entrance. When we spoke to the council, we were told that the 25 parking spaces would be available across the street, necessitating crossing Forest Road. Needless to say, most, if not all, of the library users were not sprinters. The council feebly stated that a flashing light might be installed. To date, nothing has happened. The fencing was erected, blocking off Cellini Place and extending onto Forest Road without any indication of an alternative pedestrian path. Only after I spoke to the council was the proper signage erected directing pedestrians to Admiral Street and then to Chester Place. Thankfully, we had a mild winter snow-wise because I don't know who would have cleared the steps. The former Blake building was mentioned as an alternative site for the library. This location, while still on a bus line, has several drawbacks from the pedestrian's viewpoint. There aren't any sidewalks on Fairfax Street. The sidewalks are not present on both sides the post road, and most importantly, there isn't a traffic light with a walk light at the corner of the post road and Fairfax Street. There is a bus stop at Fairfax Street heading towards to the mall, but to access to the inbound stop, you must cross the post road. I verified this by walking up the post road from UNH in May, but I won't do that in December at 4 p.m. unless there's improved pedestrian access. That the sale was awarded to Acorn at a much lower bid than what the Village Improvement Association offered raises more questions than it answers. All of these issues serve to hinder usage, especially among the elderly, the disabled, and the children. Every child in Allentown should have the opportunity to form the warm memories of going to the Allentown branch of the public library, as former Councilman Steve Mullins recounted to this body during a public session. The Village Improvement Association stands ready to continue its service in the Allentown community if the council is willing to cooperate and help us find a meaningful solution, not more broken promises. Tricia Donnelly, Village Improvement Board member and past president of Friends of the Library. And then we have a letter, duplicate letter sent by both Stephanie Cummings from Carmody Torrance, Sandeck and Hennessy, 50 Leavenworth Street in Waterbury, and also Catherine Bushman, the Assistant Director of the West Haven Public Library, 300 Elm Street. Chairman Quagliani and honorable members of the West Haven City Council, thank you for the opportunity to share our concerns about the sale of 1 Forest Road. Currently occupied by the Allentown branch of the West Haven Library System, the Village Improvement Association respectfully requests that the sale of the Allentown Library be paused until a full and robust plan for the future for library services is developed. As you are likely aware, the sale of 1 Forest Road has been a difficult process plagued with misinformation and concerns over procedural defects. In fact, the statutorily required public hearing should have occurred in April when the sale to the Acorn Group was approved by this council. Only now does the public have the opportunity to comment well after the deal has been done. From the outset of this process, the Village Improvement Association has consistently advocated for continued library services in Allentown. The Village Improvement Association dutifully submitted a bid in accordance with the guidelines and procedures set forth by the city, bidding $500,000 with a pledge of $50,000 more in renovations. Unfortunately, it is now clear that the Village Improvement Association's bid was never truly considered. Hang on, I just need a drink. The Village Improvement Association respects that the development of 1 Forest Road by the Acorn Group will likely provide new tax revenues for the city, although it appears that a tax abatement will be applied for. However, the promise of an increase in monies should not be a free pass to circumvent the process with incomplete submissions and backroom deals. even though the request for proposal required submissions of concept plans to illustrate how the building would be redeveloped consistent with the development goals of the city and a timeline to achieve goals. The bid submission made by the Acorn Group lacked any detail about the purpose or intended use of the building. The Acorn Group submission for concept plans was a one-page document stating potential preliminary development schemes under construction. Further, this council was initially informed that the Acorn Group maintains a right of first refusal that allowed the Acorn Group to match the Village Improvement Association's higher bid. Such right of first refusal does not exist. Counsel for the Village Improvement Association requested the same from Corporation Counsel and hired an independent title searcher to perform a title search, neither of which produced the elusive right of first refusal. How was the council to properly vet the sale when it was presented with misleading information? City representatives were also recently quoted falsely stating in a very public manner that the Village Improvement Association submission was disqualified for lack of bid deposit submission. At the time that the false statement was made and published, the Village Improvement Association's $25,000 deposit check was in the possession of the City of West Haven. The actions of the city lead the Village Improvement Association to believe that the city made a promise to the Acorn Group that they would be the purchaser of the building far before the actual bid process arose, which is inconsistent with the fair and equitable system that is required when a municipality sells public land. The Acorn Group was allowed to submit a non-conforming bid, rely on a non-existent right of refusal, bid dramatically less without any of the required public commentary opportunity, and was still awarded the contract. The residents of the City of West Haven deserve transparency. The City Council has a unique opportunity to right the ship and work collaboratively with the developer, the city administration, and the Village Improvement Association to create an equitable solution that, at the very least, puts the citizens on par with tax dollars. The Village Improvement Association urges the council to table this matter until a true plan for continued library services in Allentown can be developed. And that's all the letters we have this evening on this public hearing.
Thank you, Stacy. Appreciate you reading all those into the record. So next up would be the Legislative Matters Committee public hearing, amending Chapter 156, non-resident landlords registration, subsection B, and that will be Councilman Galignano.
Thank you, Chairman. Now in session at 7:28 is Legislative Matters Committee, a public hearing amending Chapter 156, non-resident landlords registration, subsection B. And I would have to believe there are no letters to be written into this public hearing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Then public hearing is now ended at 7:29. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Galignano. Next up would be the Public Lands Committee public hearing, renaming Hubbard Nature and Recreation Center. That's Councilman Donovan.
Thank you, Chairman. The time is 7:29, and the public hearing for the renaming of Hubbard Nature and Recreation Center is now open. It's my understanding that there are no letters or public hearing, public comments.
That's correct.
With that being said, the public hearing for renaming Hubbard Nature and Recreation Center is now closed at 7:29.
Thank you, Councilman Donovan. Next up is the public hearing for public lands regarding the renaming of 3rd Avenue Park, and we'll give it back to you, Councilman Donovan.
Thank you again, Chairman Quagliani. Time is now 7:30, and the public hearing session is open for renaming of 3rd Avenue Park. Again, I believe there is no public letters or available. Is that correct?
That's correct.
With that being said, the public hearing for renaming of Third Avenue Park is now closed. Time is now 7:30 p.m.
Thank you, Councilman Donovan. That concludes our public hearings for this evening. Before we enter into public session, I'd just like to take a moment, if I could, of silence with the council regarding two individuals that passed this past week. First, I'd like to mention Joe Cullen. Joe Cullen was the 9th District Councilman for 14 years here in West Haven. He served as the chairman and served as the acting mayor for a short period of time. Joe passed away after many years of service and after a long illness this past week. Also, John Serra. John Serra was a captain with the West Haven Police Department. He served West Haven from 1984 to 2010, 26 years of service. He had an overall record of 32 years in law enforcement. Started out with the Orange Police Department, moved to the Connecticut State Police, and then ended up with the West Haven Police Department. So two long-serving public servants that have passed this past week. If we could just take a moment of silence. Thank you. We will enter now into public comment. Stacy, are there any letters for public comment?
Yes, there are. Just give me a quick minute. Okay. We have a letter here from Stanley Heller, Caitlin Maloney, Brandon Patterson, and Carol E. Brown as president of the West Haven Black Coalition. To the West Haven City Council. We call on the West Haven City Council to make all its meetings open to the public via Zoom while the pandemic prevents physical meetings. That way the residents can make their statements to you before the start of the meeting, as is the rule. Cities like New Haven have been doing this since the start of the emergency. We also strongly urge you to put as an agenda item at your next meeting the conduct of West Haven Police. Last Sunday, July 5th, they failed to protect a protest march as it was leaving the West Haven Police Station. A motorist then deliberately went into the march at high speed, apparently clipping several people. She was chased by some of the marchers. She stopped and police arrived. Inexplicably, police let her go without arrest for what may have been a hate crime. Then police went after the protesters, arresting some forcefully, getting reinforcements from other towns, and even bringing out the canine squad. It's been 5 days and the police have not explained their conduct. This compounds the fact that after nearly 6 months, the police have not explained their conduct on January 15th, 2020, when Mubarak Salamane was killed, nor have they told the public what standard procedure is during confrontations when a suspect is boxed in, nor have they assured the public that they seek de-escalation rather than immediate obedience. We believe this should be discussed publicly by the council and investigated by the council and/or the mayor. Besides the matter of justice, there is the amount we fear West Haven residents as taxpayers will have to pay as a result of lawsuits against West Haven police. We are West Haven residents. And then we have a letter from Joyce Snyder from 31 First Avenue, West Haven. Dear Mr. DeMassa and City Council members, please stop the illegal fireworks. They disrupt sleep, pollute the environment, and terrorize animals. I have to drug mine to get them through most evenings. They should not be tolerated. I suggest a city hotline to report them, as Hartford has done. Please enforce Airbnb regulations. The property at 19 April Street has rented to people who have had drunken parties, loud music, all hours of the day and night, and fireworks. Last summer, a bus carrying college students descended on the property and wreaked havoc all night. Is this the property owner being fined? Finally, close to the boat ramp at 10 p.m. Close the boat ramp at 10 p.m. It is another source of loud music and fireworks. The beach parking lots are chained and closed at 10. Why can't the same be done at the boat ramp? I respectfully ask for your help and consideration regarding the above. My life should not be ruined every summer. And that is the remainder of our letters this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Stacy. So we will now enter into our regular council meeting. First order of business would be the approval of the minutes of June 15th, 2020 special meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Councilman Cohen has a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Bruno. Councilman Conlon, is there any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Next is the approval of the minutes of the June 22nd, 2020 regular meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Councilman Bruno, motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Donovan. Is there any discussion? I just have one correction. So first page, halfway down, Chairman Quagliani turned the meeting over to Finance Chairwoman. It says Hoxie, so if it's just misspelled, H-O-S-K-I-E, if we can make that correction. Is there any other comments or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That motion carries. Stacy, if I could ask you to pass out tonight's communications.
I'm gonna need a new voice after tonight. Okay. We have before us Communication A from the Finance Director in regards to an ordinance authorizing the issuance of $6,313,100 bond plus an additional financing cost of the city to meet certain 2018, 2019, 2019, 2020, and 2020, 2021 capital budget appropriations, and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowings for such purpose, being assigned to the Finance Committee, Chairwoman Hosky. And we have before us Communication B from Mayor Nancy R. Rossi in regards to the appointment of Paul A. Sikorsky Jr. to the West Haven Allentown Board of Fire Commissioners, being assigned to Personnel and Civil Service Committee, Chairman Massaro. We have before us Communication C from Health Director Maureen Lillis in regards to extending flood license renewals due to COVID-19, being assigned to Health, Safety, and Welfare Committee, Chairman Bruno. We have before us Communication D from Douglas Coulter in regards to an ordinance amending Chapter 81 Building Department fees, being assigned to the Legislative Matters Committee, Chairman Galagnano. And we have before us Communication E from Chief Joseph Perno in regards to animal shelter donations, being assigned to the Finance Committee, Chairwoman Hosky. We have before us Communication F from Commissioner Sabo in regards to a tentative agreement between the City of West Haven and the Allentown IAFF-AFL-CIO Local 1198, being assigned to the Finance Committee, Chairwoman Hosky. We have before us Communication G from taxpayer Adam Cowles in regards to a request for an abatement of interest on taxes, being assigned to the Tax Deferral Committee, Chairman Massaro. And we have before us Communication H from the tax collector in regards to refunds requests for the month of June 2020, which will be filed with tonight's meeting minutes. We have before us Communication I from CDA Manager Mark Bisecchia in regards to CDA Program Year 46 budget, being assigned to the Finance Committee, Chairwoman Hosky. And we have before us Communication J from Corporation Counsel in regards to an ordinance amending Chapter 6 Veterans Advisory Committee being assigned to the Charter Revision Committee, Chairwoman Hamilton. We have before us Communication K from the Director of Finance in regards to transfer of funds for the Allentown Fire Department being assigned to the Finance Committee, Chairwoman Hosky. We have before us Communication L from the Director of Finance in regards to a transfer of funds for the Allentown Fire Department being assigned to the Finance Committee, Chairwoman Hosky. And we have before us Communication M from the Director of Finance in regards to a transfer of funds for the Emergency Reporting System, ERS, being assigned to the Finance Committee, Chairwoman Hosky. And we have before us Communication N from Corporation Counsel in regards to the sale of One Forest Road being assigned to the Finance Committee, Chairwoman Hosky. We have before us Communication O from Corporation Counsel in regards to a lease renewal between the City of West Haven and Prospect Beach Fish and Game Club, Inc., being assigned to the Finance Committee, Chairwoman Hosky. And that concludes our communications for this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Stacy. We will recess into committee meetings. The first committee meeting is the Finance Committee, chaired by Councilwoman Hosky.
Hi, thank you, Chairman. The time is now 7:41. The Committee on Finance is in session. Members present are Councilman Bruno, Councilman Cohen, Councilman Massaro, Councilwoman Hamilton, and myself acting as chair. We have before us tonight Communication A from the Finance Director in regards to an ordinance authorizing the issuance of $6,313,100 bonds plus additional finance costs of the city to meet certain 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2020-21 capital budget appropriations and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowing for such purpose. The chair would like to entertain a motion to bring this out favorably.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Councilman Cohen, thank you. Any discussion? Councilman Cohen? I'm sorry, Councilman Cohen. I'm going to open I'm sorry, one moment. I apologize. I'm going to open this up to the entire council after the finance committee, just so that we can just get it all done and over with now. Go ahead, Barry. I'm sorry.
No problem. Thank you, Madam Chair. Before I start, I want to thank Frank Saplinski for spending a lot of time on the phone with me today to go through this. I appreciate it. And I also took time to talk to several of the stakeholders of this document, if you will. And so my question, if Mike Last is on with us, I see, Mike is with us, if he can answer a question for me. What I see under Water Pollution Control Authority is a total of $1.7 million for that. And I had called up Abdul today to get a clarification of that. And he had mentioned to me that in this current fiscal year, that they're currently working on a project that was basically bonded at $4.3 million. And that this particular proposal was for this coming fiscal year, but he had told me, or maybe I was misinterpreted, that to do this next phase of this sewer station the pump station, of doing a pump station along with the sewer upgrade and so forth, was more like 7.3 million. So I just want to be assured that because he was actually filling out or prepping the grant, if you will, if it was approved to the to the Clean Water Fund Authority. And I'm a little confused because he said he didn't have enough money, that 1.7 wasn't enough. So I just want to be clarified on what is this money going to be used for? Is it only going to be partially funded? Are there other funds, or am I off base? Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I can respond to that, I certainly would. There is 1.7 million. Part of that is the EPA portion. And then you have 500,000 for upgrades to the sewer pump stations. Frank Saplinski can probably help me with this, but there is another project, a much larger project of completely redoing one of the sewer pump stations, which will be probably about another $4.5–5 million. When that package is ready, we will be bringing that back to the council to ask for approval for additional Clean Water Fund bonding. Frank, did I get that right?
Yes, that's, once we get everything in order, we'll come back to get further, but we didn't want to hold up the general purpose bond.
Okay, so then really, so altogether probably is the entire project that he was talking about was easily about $7 million. So it was kind of a miscommunication perhaps of
Roughly correct. Roughly 7.4 were the numbers that he gave me today.
Right. Okay. No, I just wanted to make sure that we were funded correctly, because the way it was explained to me, the consent decree, the upgrades, it allows you then to apply for the clean, oh Jesus, I'm sorry.
Clean Water Fund?
Yeah, thank you. The Clean Water Fund lower rate of interest. And so I just wanted to make sure, given that I was told that ideally over X number of years, we want to hit each one of the 13 stations over the coming years. And I just want to make sure that we were resourced correctly there. So that was one of my questions. And thank you both for that clarification. I also wanted to just confirm one other thing, if I may, Madam Chair. On section 11 of the document on page 5, which is section 11, I just wanted a reclarification on something. Is I know that if this bonding proposal, if this package this evening is approved so that you can move forward with at some point or another bonding for these particular items, 6.3, or I should say, well, some of it's paying back, is there any other grants? I know that if indeed we happen to get a grant for one of these things, let's just say, for instance, I don't know, let's just say we get this grant for Parks and Recreation to upgrade some schools, some playground equipment or something, that at which point the bonding would have to have, we wouldn't need that money for that because it would be supplanted or whatever, partially supplanted. So there is still an opportunity to get outside funding and then to do a special ordinance to reallocate the bond that you had to another project. Would that be correct, Frank or Mike?
That is correct. If we are able to secure another source of revenues through grants, et cetera, the money would not be spent. We could not spend the money on anything other than what was approved by the council. So, for example, if we were able to find money for the playground equipment, let's say, then this council would then have to pass a resolution to repurpose that money that we bonded for. We could not use that to pay for normal operating costs.
And then my final question, which is attached onto the other two, is when I looked at the chart, and just for everyone's clarification as well as my own, I noted to you, Frank, and just to reiterate, is it seemed as if we're looking to be, if you will, reimbursed for our past expenses for the street paving for the prior 3 years, because it seemed to have come directly out of the city's budget, correct? So we're looking for reimbursement of that of some type, or rebonding that?
Correct. The $800,000 in each of the past 4 years was approved as part of the city's capital plan. Street paving was not stopped, so they did actually go out and do the paving, et cetera, even though we did not have the bonding for it. So those particular year, the projects for those particular years are currently in deficit by that $800,000. This bonding then effectively
reimburse the city for the money it already spent.
But there would be an interest on that bonding of X% per year over so many years, just so I'm,
There would be. It would be a 20-year payback on the streets.
and what's the interest rate, if you know? Just,
We won't get that till later in the month, but it should be
Okay.
somewhere just north of 3, I would think.
okay, so that would be there. And finally, and I do promise finally, is, you know, when I looked at this initially, and Frank, I know that you know this, but just to circle here, it looked like, you know what? Looked like we didn't bond, like, it seems to be like, it's the first year that we're bonding for some public works and stuff, and the first year that we're bonding for public safety stuff. And it seemed to me that perhaps some of these items we just never did. We might have needed them, but we kind of kicked the can down the road and we never refurbished them or what have you. Or, which I think is doubtful, it's with the exception of the Water Pollution Control Authority, we would have paid for it also out of our own budgets, but no one's asking to be reimbursed for it. So it seems to be the former, that we just needed these things that just came due, and this was part of our budget plan, if you will, that was approved. Would that be an assumption?
That's absolutely correct. If you looked into prior year budget books for the capital plan, you would see line items in there for vehicle replacement, for public works, et cetera. Because the city never bonded, they never went out and purchased the vehicles.
Okay,
So,
because, yeah.
as you said, it got kicked, the can got kicked down the road, and unfortunately, now the road ends with you.
Oh, well, thank you. And because I'm done.
Thank you.
I'm just going to say, Madam Chair, but you beat me to it. I saw the mouth open there.
Okay, we'll come back if you have more, I promise. Does anyone else have any questions for Frank or Mike in regards to the bonding? Going once? Twice? Barry? Oh, you're good? I can open it up to the entire council? Nobody? Excellent. Okay, so we'll vote. 1 second. So this is just for the Finance Committee. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. So communication F, right? Yes.
E.
B, E, B, E, E, B.
Edward.
Oh, communication. Wait. I'm sorry. Communication E from Chief Joseph Perno in regards to animal shelter donations. I would like to bring this out favorably. Councilman Cullen, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Bruno. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Communication F in regard from Commissioner Sable in regards to a tentative agreement between the City of West Haven and the Allentown IAFF-AFL-CIO Local 1198. I would like to entertain a motion to bring this out favorably. Councilman Bruno, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Councilwoman Hamilton and Cohen, thank you. Is there any discussion? Councilman Cohen?
Yes, I see that we have Joe DeGrand on the line. And if I just have a couple of very quick questions, if I may. One of them basically was, and if you don't have the answer for this, it's fine. It's just really a curiosity that I usually ask when contracts come before us. but I'm very happy to see the union has agreed to the state partnership plan. And I did not have a chance to call Beth Sabo today. My apologies, but if you know the answer to this, about what is that going to result in savings to the city? And if you don't know, that's fine. It's not a showstopper.
I personally do not know what the savings is,
That's fine.
unfortunately.
No, that's fine.
Councilman, Chairman Quagliani, do you want to advise?
Yeah, so
Thank you.
the total healthcare savings over 4 years is $85,000. And then the wage increase is $42,000, the stipend is $12,600, and the paramedic stipend is $14,000. So a net savings for the 4-year impact is $16,233.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just a correction to that. I spoke to Beth earlier this evening. The wages should actually be moved up a year, the additional costs. So for complete transparency, it would be actually a cost of $4,000 over the 4-year impact, rather than the savings of 16. The 21,000 additional wages would occur in fiscal 23, not in fiscal 24. That was an error on my part.
Those 23, 24, and 25?
Correct.
So there's a 4,000 net savings is what you're saying, correct?
Net impact, a cost.
Net impact. Okay.
Right. So
Okay.
very minimal to the city.
Yeah. And my second question I'm going to hold on because I can always ask Beth tomorrow on it. Again, it's not applicable to this particular vote, if you will. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Are there any other questions? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Am I missing something? Hold on. Tax rate for tax CDA. So we have communication I from CDA manager Mark Bisakia in regards to CDA program year 46 budget. I would like to entertain a motion to bring this out favorably. Councilman Bruno, thank you. Do I have a second? Councilwoman Hamilton, thank you. Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. I have communication K from the Director of Finance in regards to a transfer of funds from the Allentown Fire Department. I would like to have a motion to bring this out favorably. Thank you, Councilman Cohen. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councilman Massaro. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Are you opposed, Councilman Massaro? Oh, you're in favor? You're in favor, okay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Communication L from the Director of Finance in regards to a transfer of funds for the Allentown Fire Department. I would like to entertain a motion to bring this out favorably. Thank you, Councilman Cohen. Do I have a second? Councilman Bruno and Massaro. Any discussion? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. I have communication M from the Director of Finance in regards to a transfer of funds for the emergency reporting system. The chair would entertain a motion to bring this out favorably. Councilman Massaro, thank you. Do I have a second? Councilman Cohen and Bruno, thank you. Is there any discussion? Okay, I have a question, Frank. So I just found it, and I'm just curious about transferring money into hold on, to the capital non-reoccurring account. Since when do we do that? Like, since when don't we take the extra money and put it into the city's fund? Like, won't we get to the point where all departments would want to do something like that if they have extra money? And I'm not saying that this doesn't need to happen, but I'm just saying, are we setting a precedent where departments would start to do that to?
Yeah, that's a great question. The only reason we're doing this is because the project was supposed to start in fiscal 20, and we were not able to get everything lined up with Motorola in time. The option was either to have them present us a bill in fiscal 20 as a placeholder, which I was not comfortable with as a financial person, just having a phony bill presented to encumber the money. So I thought it would be more transparent and cleaner to actually move that money to a multi-year fund and make that initial payment to that fund, as well as the $200,000 that is currently part of the current year budget. So kind of a long-winded question, a long-winded answer to come back and say, yes, I would hope that in future, rather than having to do this, that the various departments get everything lined up prior to the end of the year to use the funds that were available to them.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? All in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. I have communication N from Corporation Counsel in regards to the sale of 1 Forest Road. I believe that there's a letter to be read. Stacey, do you want me to read it?
Entirely up to you. I don't mind reading it.
I can do it if you like. I believe.
So,
I can do it.
as a point of clarification to the council, there was one letter that was missed for public comment that we're going to read at this point.
Okay. Chairman Quagliani and the honorable members of the West Haven City Council, thank you for the opportunity to discuss the future of the library services in Allentown. As previously discussed, the VIA is very concerned with how the library services can continue in Allentown after the sale of 1 Forest Road to the Acorn Group. The city has publicly stated that it is committed to continuing library services in Allentown, but its actions tell a different story. The current purchase and sale agreement does not adequately address a future home for the Allentown Library. Under the current agreement, the library could remain in its current home for up to 3 years, only if the city and the Acorn Group reach an agreement on lease terms within 30 days of the agreement's execution. At the conclusion of the 3 years, the library would be without a home. If the city and the Acorn Group are unable to develop lease terms, the Allentown Library will be closed shortly thereafter, and only then will the Acorn Group pay $5,000 towards relocation. Noticeably missing from the conversation surrounding the lease is a requirement that the VIA be at the table. Further, although the current charter treats the VIA as a city department, the city has frequently open that the VIA should be prepared to pay fair market rent for whatever space it occupies in Allentown. Both space in One Forest Road and in the Blake Building would, according to the city, require market rate rents from approximately $12 to $25 per square foot, a cost that the VIA simply cannot afford. The VIA also discovered that the city made an agreement with the Acorn Group that it would be allowed to occupy the One Forest Road building during the pandemic, to the explicit exclusion of the VIA. The VIA only became aware of this after its employees were forced to leave the building late last week after peacefully working on the administrative tasks. No members of the public were in the building at the time. Apparently, the city signed an agreement that the VIA would not enter the building so that the Acorn Group could have sole access. Each of these situations, coupled with recent serious budget cuts, illustrate that the city is not concerned with the people of Allentown having access to community resources. It goes without saying that in these economically devastating times, more and more citizens will rely on public resources to rebuild resumes, apply for jobs, provide educational material for their children, and attempt to find reprieve amongst the stacks. Without meaningful partnership with the city, the residents of Allentown will lose their library. The VIA sees a unique opportunity for the city council to salvage the situation and take a stand for the people of Allentown. The city council should insist that the city administration provides a team to assist the VIA in finding a new home for the library, and also identify a specific budget that the VIA can rely on, reporting back to the council each month on progress. As mentioned in the VIA's testimony for the public hearing on the sale of One Forest Road, the city council should prohibit the sale of One Forest Road from moving forward without protection that the library will have a home upon sale. The citizens of West Haven, particularly those in Allentown, need the city council to advocate for them. The VIA implores the council to take a stand and ensure that the library services continue in Allentown. And this was, I'm not sure who sent this. With an address, do you have that, Stacy? It's not signed. Stacy?
Yeah, hang on just a second. I'm gonna look it up. Yeah, from Stephanie Cummings. From,
Okay.
and also Catherine Bushman, the two women who wrote the original vote for the public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So the chair, I want to entertain a motion to bring this out favorably. Thank you, Councilman Massaro. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councilwoman Hamilton and Cohen. Is there any discussion? Councilman Cohen?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I think I'm going to direct these questions to Lee if he's on the phone, if he's on the line still. Lee, as I was writing down some notes from the public hearing, one of them struck out to me, a Mary Galvin, who I believe is a former prosecutor and state's attorney. And she cited some legalese, if you will, some laws and so forth, and which included racial discrimination, as well as standing. And I don't know if you had any comment on that. Obviously, we want to do the right things by the community, but we also want to make sure that we are, protected as a city, as well as our citizens in the city. So any comment you have about that letter, or if not, that's fine. It stuck out at me.
Well, I known Mary. Mary just isn't informed with respect on this particular topic. Look, the library owns a building on the West Shore and runs a library on the West Shore. The library owns a building downtown and runs the center library. For some reason, in all these years, the Library Association has never decided to own a building in Allentown. So if someone's going to accuse somebody of racial discrimination, you could argue with the Library Association. So this just doesn't make sense. However, I think with the real point, I'm not concerned about someone having a favorable outcome on a lawsuit concerning racial discrimination. However, and this was brought up every time I have raised this topic of this sale, and I have not heard differently. It is the consensus of this group that you want a presence for the Allentown Library in Allentown. There are many ways to achieve that goal. Many, 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 many ways. Now, different ways cost different amounts of money. The Library Association itself has utilized library grant funds on the construction side. Those funds there's still a library grant program for capital and construction funds. There's a number of ways to continue to have a library presence. A library is not a building, it's the people involved in providing the service. And, the Blake building is not the only option. There are many other options. There will be representatives of the City Council meeting with the Library Association to try to discuss those options. But, the fact of the matter is we have a developer, and the developer would like to proceed with a given area, and it's by a lot of accounts a positive development. It's positive tax revenue. There's no reason why you can't have both the development and the library, maybe not at the same location, but there's no reason why you can't have both things in Allentown. I see this as an opportunity, not a negative. There's a lot of having an improved library, a modern library, a library that maybe has a coffee shop, a library that's maybe connected to other retail, a library that's maybe closer to those seniors at Crete. So there's no reason to look at this in a negative way. This can be looked at in a positive way. And there are
just to follow up on that, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Lee. Yeah, oh, thank you. And I was reviewing some earlier notes about the library, as well as the, I believe it was a presentation that was emailed to us by the developer, I think Mr. Beckerman, if I'm not mistaken. And at the time when they basically showed the library, or I should say the building, if you will, and what they wanted to do with it, it seemed to me that they needed to, or they were planning to, they needed more parking spaces. So was it a house, or was it another structure that maybe was there any time sensitivity to this? No, that's what I'm saying is if we approve this tonight versus waiting a month, I'm not saying that we should. I'm just saying, is there any time sensitivity, because is there other things that are kind of a domino effect here about maybe making sure there's enough parking, handicap, other buildings going up? Is there any of that you can comment on or not? I'm just curious.
Wow, I thought the comment here, say that. The time of this sale is driven by the fact that the developer has run out of time to not do the sale. That is true. And there will be financial penalties if the developer doesn't, which will result in the developer not developing in Allentown anymore because it doesn't make any sense. Almost like a domino effect. It all falls into place. So yes, the timing is such that we're at a point where we have to fish or cut bait. I'm not, just so you know, and it's not, look, listening to those letters maybe wasn't pleasant. We're gonna be coming back at you, I'm sure, after meeting with the library folks, with other proposals that you're gonna have to approve to keep library services in Allentown. So this issue is not gonna, the issue with the library is not gonna go away, but the development will move forward. And then, like I say, the city can get, hopefully, the best of both worlds, a better improved library situation, financially feasible library situation in Allentown, and positive development in Allentown.
Thank you. I'm gonna hold my other questions to give everyone else a chance. Thank you, Madam Chair, for your patience.
Councilwoman Hamilton?
Hi, Lee. I was wondering if you could tell the council, has that building been reassessed, reevaluated?
Well, we had it assessed by appraiser. The appraiser primarily does residential, but does some commercial appraisals. The developer also had it appraised. So both appraisals were in the public record. The assessor has to reassess all property, as you know, because it's a reevaluation. So I did reach out to the assessor inquiring as to when that would be done. And this property is now for the October 1st grand list, which will be October 1st, 2020, is appraised for a commercial use as of that date. So when that grand list is out, assuming the sales occurred, when that list comes out, it will include that new valuation.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Massaro? Councilman Massaro, I don't know if you're talking, but I can't hear you.
I'm on the phone. I'm using my phone.
Here you go.
Can you hear me now? All right. Beginning of last week, I got information that Mr. Beckerman is looking to purchase more property for more parking for that area, because if you look at it now, Parkview is almost finished, and he is looking forward to expand the parking there for that building, because he sees there's not enough adequate parking if he does the office building that he wants to do there and for the library. Just remember, as everybody in those letters are saying, we sold the library. We do not own the library, and we own the building. That's it. We're selling the building. And in the contract, it says that they will be there for 3 years, and it's their opportunity, if they work out a deal, to stay there longer or go to the Blake building. They got a couple of options there, and like Lee said, they have a bunch of other options there too. There's a lot of property in that area where the library could go. So, I mean, let's not look at the bad end of it. Let's look at the good part of it for the future. The library is going to end up staying in Allentown, I think, to be honest with you. Thank you.
Did you have a follow-up question, Councilwoman Hamilton?
Yes, if it's all right with you. Lee, has the Blake building, has the developer that was interested in the Blake building, has that been sold yet or bought yet?
Yeah, we anticipate that sale going forward next month. I will probably have some item relative to that building on your agenda for August.
Is there some kind of like coordination that would they need to know from library people if they're interested or not? Because if this man starts to develop, it's all going to depend on if they want to take that space or not. Is there like a time period that we're looking at?
Well, I reached out, folks. My understanding is they've toured the Blake building. I think they made extensive notes. They have some ideas. But the Library Association is not, at least from the city side, obviously they can have they're an independent 501c3 organization that have, whatever plans or projects they want. But they're going to have more than one option. The Blake option is not going to be their only option. We're going to be able to present them with at least 3 options this week, and I'm sure if we, everybody puts their heads together, we can even come up with more. So I think there are going to be a lot of viable options for the library, including the concept of Blake building, but the developer remains enthusiastic about it. Obviously it'll crunch down to numbers and what people's thoughts are, the amount of space available, so on. But look, in the end, where the Library Association is in charge of providing library services. So in the end, it's the space that they're going to be comfortable in. They're, you know, they have, we need to hear from them and what their thoughts are on where to go and where to be and what we can do. The positive thing from a view is that if you take the library as, you know, kind of an anchor tenant or a piece of a puzzle, you can envision a lot of different options if you piggyback onto that, that you have a library, this is what it means, this is how much foot traffic you have, so on and so forth. So there are other deals that have been done. I've reached out to the University of New Haven. I told the library I have not reached out to the VA about where they might see themselves as a partner, if any at all. Like I say, there's a library grant foundation that the library is utilizing. There's a lot of options here, and we just need to get to the one that everybody feels the most comfortable with.
Thank you.
Hi, Lee. It's Bridget. So I have a couple of questions. So I heard everything you were just saying. So, and I think what Councilman Massaro said is key, and I think that we need to keep saying it because unfortunately the narrative that is being presented to the residents of the city is not actually factual, at least in my opinion. We are not selling the library. We are selling the building that the city owns at 1 Forest Road. And we have, in my opinion, given them time to relocate or start to begin the process of relocating. So you said that you've been calling around trying to find them a new location. Are you saying that it is our responsibility as a city to find them new real estate? Or are you doing this in a partnership type of trying to be collaborative and assist them? Because I didn't think it was our responsibility to find them new real estate if they want to stay in Allen, like for them to stay in Allentown. So can you just tell me, like, what is your goal? Like, are you doing it because you're expected to do it, or are you doing it to help?
I'm doing it for free. One is, for example, if I come to City Hall, right now we're closed to a large degree. So if I come to City Hall and there are people that need to pay taxes or drop something off the assessor's office, I don't just walk past them and say, well, that's not my job or whatever. If somebody is looking confused out in City Hall, I always ask, do you need help? What's going on? I don't think I'm the only one that does that, but I think that's useful for any city employee to do. If you can assist somebody, we should, to some degree, be in the consumer field and try to make people feel good about city services. Second, I think from a development point of view, potentially this is, an asset. This is a positive thing. So if there are other potential development topics with city property or that relate to city property or that relate to development in the city, and the library can be a part of that, I certainly want that to be an idea that the Village Improvement Association considers. The third, they have said, I think they've said publicly, that their resources are limited. So I try to offer whatever resources I can, try to make sure that they feel like they have options, they can chew them over, they can look at them. And fourth, I think that the council made it clear that it was a desire of the council that there be a home for the Allentown Library in the city of West Haven. The councilors are not told to have your own job, your own obligations. The city is a part-time public service that you provide. And I think if you're going to make an informed decision and you guys are going to do the best you can, you guys meaning the councilors, to try to relocate the library, that you need information, you need options. And if, someone's got to do it. Someone's got to provide that information. But
So where is Fred Masora in all of this? I mean, why is our corp counsel doing this and not the gentleman? I mean, if it was to be assigned to partner with the village improvement to do this, why wouldn't that be going to Fred Masur to look at properties? I mean, isn't he that guy? Like, what? In my opinion, I mean, I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but I would just think that wouldn't we want to partner them with him? Not that you're not good. I'm not trying to say that you're, please understand. I'm just saying that when I look at somebody's job description, and the library is vital to Allentown, why would our, what is his title again? It's something that says something that would make me think it's falls under him.
Well, I can certainly, I have plenty to do. So I can certainly delegate provide what I have and delegate what I have to Mr. Masur and let him take the ball and run with it from there. He does have a commercial real estate background. He certainly should know what the commercial real estate options are in the Allentown area. And so I'm happy to explore that. That would be terrific.
In my opinion, when I look at things, I mean, and you are crucial, and I think, knowing the person you are and my experiences with you, I appreciate you doing all of this, but I'm just thinking, and that's just one of my little wondering about that. I do have another question. This in one of the letters, Mary had referred to one, there was mention as far as the nonprofit organization that is housed at the library. And how many nonprofit organizations does the city actually give space to free? And if we're not doing that, how can we continuously do it for some nonprofits and not all of them? When you're thinking about being fair, when you're thinking about doing things equally, I mean, is that really something that we should be taking on, or should we be expecting nonprofits to reserve rooms for their meetings? And because the city there's tons of nonprofits that are being worked in our city. Can you just speak to that a little bit? Because it was mentioned several times in the letter, and just, how we as a city view that.
Well, where possible, we try to evaluate the affordability of the city providing whatever space it provides to any nonprofit. Remember the discussion on the child daycare center, and we ended up increasing that lease arrangement by 100%. There have been other lease arrangements, I've charged people even to do demonstrations. I've asked for, $60 a year or whatnot. Look, there's going to be some organizations that maybe they have no other space to get. The city is the public, and so temporarily to hold a meeting. But even then, we still would probably, it's going to cost the city. So, most cities charge some sort of nominal fee to cover, a custodial charge, or to cover if we're paying city employees overtime to clean the space. Because otherwise, we are providing a subsidy to one nonprofit and not necessarily to another. There are plenty of nonprofits that do pay the city fees to use space, and any nonprofit that needs to use city space will discuss what needs they have, and we'll discuss what's applicable for them. It may not be permanent space. It may be space as you provide your service. Maybe you need space for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours. Permanent space is probably a much greater challenge to provide. But the other thing we do too, when we evaluate what we're going to do with a nonprofit, is we thoroughly vet the nonprofit, so that, I can tell you with the daycare center, we looked at several years of their 990s, which are the tax returns that nonprofits file with the Internal Revenue Service. We looked at the services they provided. I got the numbers on the percentage of West Haven children they service. I looked at the whatever awards and credentials of the staff at the CDA. They were vetted pretty extensively in that respect. And so as we look at this, we have to look at what we're providing, what are the needs of the city. Lastly, part of the reason we do it now as well is because we have a state entity looking over our shoulder. And I don't know how, if I have to, and I have to frequently, talk to and testify before the MARB committee and the MARB subcommittee, I don't know how I can justify giving one nonprofit space at no cost and giving another, and charging another nonprofit. They generally have frowned on that in the past pretty significantly. And it's been the subject of extensive debate when they find out about it. So, but look, we have to provide whatever resources we can to those neediest in the community. We have to make sure we are providing a variety of build Park and Rec skills, but even Park and Rec, look at all the schedules for that. So
Right.
we just have to be reasonable about it. That's all. We have to be reasonable about it. Take a look at it at every end.
Right. So I have one more question. Councilman Cohen is like, really? So we've been getting a lot of feedback on, from the VIA saying how are they going to pay the fair market value for a lease? And my biggest concern, I don't know if it's concern, but I wonder, how are they going to pay for a mortgage? So if they talk about, the question is, if we had approved them buying the building, how are they going to pay for that mortgage? And it would seem reasonable to me that we would expect it to have been that exact same way. Unless, because, they were going to actually use tax dollars to pay for a building that they bought from us that they would now own, that we were paying, that we, the taxpayers, were paying for them to own. So, that, I always wondered about that. So this is my question. I know I just made a statement, but kind of, could they, in your opinion, use the interest off their endowment to pay for some of this leasing, or was that what they were going to pay their mortgage with? I don't know. And have we heard back from them, or have they engaged us in any of the conversations when I suggested to them that they partner with us regarding their payroll, regarding them combining with the police and the fire department with their pensions so that we could get a better price? Have you heard from them in regards to figuring any of that out? Because if they're doing some of that stuff, I would think, well, there's where some of the money could come from. And if they haven't done any of that, I think it's really important that they start doing that, because that's where some money may be.
Well, there have been members of representatives of the Library Association and their attorney that have reached out to me. I think this week we're going to begin an extensive dialogue as to where we need to go, and look at the whole. The Library Association needs to look at their entire operation and their entire structure, and where the city can help them reduce costs, increase efficiency. The city should help them do that. There's no reason not to. And where, the library can cut costs without affecting services, they should. But look, they're an independent organization. They can make decisions themselves. I think the city has to be sensitive as to, how we best position this so that they can provide the best need. I mean, for example, the city council could be in the position that we put together a deal where maybe a tax abatement to a developer allows for a long-term lease arrangement. So maybe the city, in that instance, would give up some tax revenue, but in the end, get a long-term commitment to have a library service in the community. I mean, there's just a lot of different ways to do this. There are funding sources out there that would be money put into the pot, so to speak, if you did a deal. So I'm confident that the Library Association in the end wants, the City Council and the Library Association in the end want the exact same thing. You want the best library service for the Allentown residents that you can possibly have. I mean, frankly, you want the best library service for all the residents that you can possibly have. So because you have the same goal, I think it's just a question of everybody coming to an agreement as to the road to reach that goal, and I'm confident that'll happen.
Thank you so much. I promise I'll hold off on the rest of my inquiry. Does anyone else have any questions? I can open it up to the entire city council if you like. Good. Chairman?
Thank you, Councilwoman Hosky. I just want to tag on to some of the things that were said here tonight. So I don't want to speak for everybody. I'll speak for myself, and then I think it's the tone of the city council that the city council does want a library branch in Allentown. And I think we've been clear on that for a number of months, and we will be committed to work together with the VIA to achieve that. And we have a meeting coming up this week with the VIA and a few council members to begin that dialogue to see, what is the best location for a library in Allentown that's going to provide better services than what they have now. So this is part two. Part one was working together to get the library efficiency study specs put together, put it out to bid, award that bid, and now begin the study. So those things have happened. The study has begun, and hopefully that will inform us as to what our future moves would be with with the library and the VIA. So again, we've gotten many letters about don't close the library in Allentown, and I think I'm here to commit that I'm going to do all I could do to make sure that there's a library branch in Allentown for the foreseeable future, because I think one is needed there. Will it look the same as it does now? Will it be in the same spot as it is now 3 or 5 years from now? I don't know, but that's what we're going to work on together. So again, I want to reiterate that there's a library branch in Allentown. The council is committed to that. So we may sell the building, but we're not closing the library or moving the library out of Allentown. Now, it's the VIA's choice if they choose to do that. We're here to work with them to make sure that that doesn't happen. But at the end of the day, the VIA is the group that oversees the libraries. So we have no authority to tell the VIA what branch they open, what branch they close, what the hours are at those branches, what services are provided in those branches. That is all the Village Improvement Association makes those decisions. So I'm here to say that we will partner to help make sure if they want to keep a branch in Allentown, that we're be a partner at the table to do that. But again, the VIA is the one that's ultimately going to make that decision on the branches for the library. Thank you.
Chairman Quagliani, if that is all, I will take all in favor for just the Finance Committee. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. And before us, we have communication O from Corporation Council in regards to a lease renewal between the City of West Haven and Prospect Beach and Fish Game Club. I would like to bring this out favorably. Councilman Cohen, thank you. Would I have a second? Thank you, Councilman Hamilton and Massaro. Any discussion? Councilman Cohen?
Just one question, I believe for Lee. Lee, I know that when I read the lease contract, proposed lease contract, that we initially they were doing 5-year leases for the last few cycles, and then we were proposing 3, and then it went back to 5. Was there any reason, or maybe I'm misreading this wrong, in terms of why we only wanted initially to commit to 3 versus 5? I'm just curious.
Yeah,
Why?
you vote. I don't. But if I were asked for a recommendation, I would recommend 3. 5 makes everybody's life easier because it doesn't come up and it lasts longer and so on and so forth. But for what you guys do, I think it's preferred, given the finances of the city, given the changing needs of the city, that, part of the lesson you learned with the CDA lease is people forgot about it, or maybe they forgot about it on purpose. I don't know, the child daycare center. So a 3-year lease makes it come up. You get to look at it. In 3 years, we'll have a new elected council, so why not? I don't have a problem with a 3-year lease. And the lessee shouldn't have a problem with it either, because, what's the difference between 3 and 5 years? A lease is a lease is a lease, so.
So you read it wrong. I thought that there was a strong preference, maybe I'm wrong, that the Prospect Beach wanted to do the 5. I'm sorry.
They have a preference by their attorney that they would prefer a 5-year lease.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Thank you.
All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, and your Finance Committee has now closed, and the time is 8:42.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hosky. Next up is the Public Lands Committee, Councilman Donovan.
Thank you, Chairman Quagliani. The time is 8:42. The Committee on Public Lands is now in session. Members present is Councilman Galignano, Councilwoman O'Connor, and Councilman Conlon. Me acting as Councilman Donovan acting as chair. This is the second reading to be brought out to council. I'd like to bring it out favorably. I'd like a motion to bring it out favorably to, this is about renaming Hubbard Farm, a Hubbard Recreation, excuse me, a Hubbard Nature and Recreation Center to renaming it Hubbard Farms Park. I'd like a motion.
So moved.
The second. Any discussion? All right. Any opposed? All in favor, sorry.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Committee on Public Lands for this particular instance is now closed. It is now 8:43. The continue, Chairman?
Yeah, you have one more communication.
Yeah.
I'll make sure. Okay. Also, we have with us the second reading for the 3rd Avenue, renaming of the 3rd Avenue Park. I'd like to bring this out favorably. Like a motion to bring this out favorably.
So moved.
Okay, second. That was Mitch Galignano, sorry. Colleen O'Connor, second. Any discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Public land hearing is the committee is now closed at 8:44, sorry.
Thank you, Councilman Donovan. Next up is the Legislative Matters Committee, Councilman Galignano.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your Committee on Legislative Matters is now in session. Committee members are Councilman Bruno, Councilwoman Johnston, Councilman Cohen, and absent is Councilwoman Finale and myself acting as chair. First up is Communication D from Douglas Cotter in regards to an ordinance amending Chapter 81 Building Department fees. Lee, I would like to defer to you a little bit on this, so you could just elaborate on this, seeing that I'm not an attorney, and that's a lot of stuff for me to digest. Please.
Yeah. Thank you, Councilman Gagliano. So what you have is the gentleman in the building department figured out a solution to a problem. So like a lot of things in the city, right? The computer system that's utilized in the building department has crashed 7 times. This is like having a hole in the roof and the water just coming in, not doing so we really don't have a choice. We need a change system. So that's one. It's clear, and so it's clearly an emergency. We have figured out a way to do it through this ordinance change where we can implement a, modernized high-tech solution, and yet we believe over a 5-year period also generate revenue if you make this change. So we think we're going to be able to implement a system. The system will be more customer-friendly. It'll be more easy to utilize remotely. It'll be quicker. It will save money on storage of materials and documentation and so on. The people who are serviced by the building department will be much happier with how they're being serviced. And lo and behold, we should be able to generate not insignificant fees as well. So, it needs to be put down for a first reading, but this is something that, one way or another, you have to change the technology system. When I saw the proposal, this was an idea of doing that where you could do it and still generate revenue at the same time. So I'm strongly in favor of this change. You have the ordinance before you. That's the proper method so that the change is legal. And we can get started on it straight away. We're ready. The staff is ready to implement the changes as quickly as possible.
Thank you. I did read it, and it does clear up a lot of things. I saw that I guess it would basically go paperless from what I read. Is that correct?
Well, I'd like to think we go completely paperless, but yes, to an overwhelming degree, it would be paperless. I would cross my fingers to think that we could ever go purely paperless. An overwhelming degree.
I agree. So any questions on my committee for Lee out there? Councilman Cohen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I guess I have 2 questions for Lee because when I read this, I didn't really connect it to automating a system. I was looking at the fee structures more than anything, and perhaps that might be a limitation of our old system versus new. But on the, I guess it's on the second page, 81-1-A, work commencing before permit issuance. If I understand this correctly, the fine for each violation shall be $100, but I assume that the current ordinance is for each day that such violation continues. So are we making this more lenient? We're only charging $100. I'm just surprised that I'm not surprised. I guess I'm questioning why we are not doing it each day. Is it unfeasible? Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I guess I don't understand the question. You have to replace infrastructure regardless, so you could replace it and just pay money. The ordinance change is to try to build a mechanism as painlessly as possible to all parties where we generate the fees to pay for the system but also to, and now we're going to be looking for other methods to pay for this system as well, grants, so on and so forth, none of which mutually exclusive. But we needed the ordinance change in order to match the fee. So in other words, you'll have a new system and you don't have a fee structure in place so that we charge for people to use the new system. You follow?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, so basically, you struck out for each day, and you're just basically doing a flat. I mean, I'm just reading what's here. The fine for each violation shall be $100, and we struck out for each day. Now, I don't know how that impacts the system per se. It's really more of a straightforward question. Do we know why we made the fee the fine more lenient than it was? I mean, new system or not new system, it was just struck out. So what's the deal with that, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Well, we did research about fee generation. You always look to everything you do. I mean, you could have a fee of $10,000, like you could say littering, $10,000. But in reality, are you really going to collect any, is a judge really going to impose that fine because it's so excessive? And then even if you did, is everybody going to be able to pay that fine? We believe the new structure, as we've said, can generate more fees. But if you want more in-depth, what I would suggest you and I do, Councilman Cohen, is if you want a more in-depth analysis, that I should facilitate so that you can have a more in-depth discussion with the staff who developed the plan. And I think you'd be more than satisfied once you hear how it developed. But I would have had them here tonight, but they could talk for about 3 hours. They're very excited with their plan, and I didn't think tonight's meeting was the proper meeting for that lengthy discussion. But
I didn't, Lee. I didn't think it was gonna be a lengthy discussion. It was just a simple question. I mean, if we feel like we're going to generate, if the staff feels we're going to generate more revenue, and that it's probably unfeasible, and you compare it to other cities and towns, and you benchmark that this per day was probably not applicable or not enforceable, that's a good enough answer for me. I'm just asking the question. Okay, and it's not to question the staff. It's to make sure I know what I'm voting on and what I'm looking at here. Okay.
Yeah. So all the surrounding communities and communities size in the state of Connecticut.
Okay, and then my second question, and if I need to speak to the department, I will, but I'm entitled to this question, I believe, is on the revenue forecast assumptions on the last page of the document we received. Do you know, and if not, I'm more than happy to call the staff tomorrow myself, not to hold up anything, of course. I need 2020 projections, because I see we have the 5-year as stated there, as you would expect, but when they did this type of calculation and we're in the year 2020 and we're moving forward, what is the forecast for 2020, 2021? Do we know that?
Well, we don't have the system. I mean, it's our intent to put the system in place as quickly as possible. I'm not exactly sure how long that takes, whether that's a 60 or 90 day.
Well, no, my point, Lee, is that we basically made the statement that we are going to probably raise more revenue and so forth. So that had to be predicated on making a forecast on the next 2 or 3 years out. So regardless if the system's in place or not, you would think that there would be some number there to at least provide an estimate or a range of forecast, and there's not. And as a business person and as someone who runs businesses, I would expect that. So I'm surprised not to see that in there. That's my only comment, Lee. Thank you.
All right. That's because fiscal 2020 is, we're in fiscal 21 technically. I don't know if it's a nomenclature issue or not. I'll have to check for you, Councilman Cohen. I apologize.
Okay, no reason to apologize. Thank you so much for your patience with me this evening. Have a nice one.
You all set, Mr. Councilman? Anybody else on my committee have questions? Mr. Chairman, can I make this out to the whole committee out to the whole council if I so choose?
It's your prerogative, Mr. Chairman.
So yeah, I will put it out to the whole council. If anybody has any questions for Lee on this. I don't see any. So I would like a motion to bring this out favorably. And I got Councilman Cohen, and do I have a second?
Second.
For Bruno, second. Do I have any, all approved? Any, nays? I don't see any nays. Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously, Mr. Chairman. Second on my, committee tonight is Communication G from the 6/22/20 agenda from Councilman Massaro in regards to amending the city ordinance 156-2. And that is changing the original, I'm looking to change section 156-2 subsection B. The original section states each non-resident or agent in charge shall pay a fee of $25 for each initial registration and a $10 fee for each notice of residential address change. The change section will state each non-resident or agent in charge shall pay a fee of $150 for each initial registration and a fee of $20 for each notice of a residential address change. This would be a yearly practice to the city. Any questions?
I just have a point of order, Councilman. I believe that was, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was changed to $100 instead of $150 last meeting.
I apologize. Do I need to reread that?
I would just so note it that you're voting on that it's going to be increased to $100 as opposed to $150.
Okay, so it's going to $100 and what was the other one? $25?
The rest of the communication is accurate.
Was the same, okay.
Yeah.
Any questions, committee? All in favor? Oh, did I see a question over there from Councilman Hosky? All in favor? Oh, I need a motion. I'm sorry, I need a motion to approve, please. Cohen, I need a second, please. Councilman Bruno, all in favor? All, any noes? Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously, Mr. Chairman, and that concludes the business of legislative matters at 8:58.
Thank you, Councilman Galignano. Next committee is the Personnel and Civil Service Committee. Councilman Massaro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Communication B, present on the committee is Councilwoman Hamilton, Councilwoman McGee, Councilwoman O'Connor, and Councilman Bruno, and myself as chair. We got here Communication B from Mayor Nancy R. Rossi in regards to appoint Paul Sikorsky Jr. to the West Haven Allentown Board of Fire Commissioners. I'd like to bring this out favorably. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Councilman O'Connor, second. Councilman Bruno, Councilman Hamilton. Any abstentions? All in favor? Motion passes. And the Committee on Personnel and Service is done at 8:59.
Thank you, Councilman Massaro. Next committee is the Charter Revision Committee. Councilwoman Hamilton.
The time is now 8:59. The Committee on Charter Revision is in session. Members present are Councilpersons Hosky, Galignano, Massaro, and Cohen, and myself as chair. We have before us tonight Communication J from Corporation Counsel in regards to an ordinance amending Chapter 6 Veterans Advisory Committee. Lee, can you please talk to us about this? Please?
Yeah, so because of COVID and whatnot, I had an extensive discussion with a representative of the Secretary of State's office concerning the city ballot. Okay, so the city ballot is going to have charter revision on it. It was my view that it would have charter revision. You don't know whether it's going to pass or not, and then if it passes, then I would take away. I've gone through a number of scenarios that I would go through because one of the goals is that the city actually save money by not having an election in 1 year out of 4. And in addition to that, I think there's no harm to the public in doing that. By passing this ordinance, actually, it'll help my case. Because as you can see, this would be a simple change to allow for the Veterans Advisory Committee to be elected. And after the first election, have the election of one member every 3rd year. So it's really form over substance personified. There have been suggestions that it not become effective until after the election, which I think makes sense, because obviously you don't need this if charter pass. Even if charter revision does pass, this would just be one of my exhibits if I have to go that far, if I can't get some sort of tacit agreement that this idea that we have to just have an election to have an election is kind of mindless. So I don't think there's a downside to doing this, especially if enactment isn't until after the election, and then we can revisit it if charter revision doesn't pass. If charter revision does pass, then we would utilize this as an illustration of how ludicrous the idea is that we have to hold an election every year for some reason. It makes the Secretary of State's office more comfortable about the ballots. It makes them happy. It's difficult to litigate with the Secretary of State's office right now under COVID. Courts are not as accessible as they were. I don't know that I would get a full hearing, the kind that I want, the real review of the legal issues, if we tried to have a hearing now. Because if you're the judge is going to view this as, what's the easiest way out of this? And so it preserves all our rights. We're not getting away from trying to save money in that off-year election. Again, it's just a placeholder that makes the Secretary of State's office happy so that they print our ballot. Otherwise, you're having me expend a lot of time and money to try to fight it prematurely, I think. When, again, if charter revision doesn't pass, there's nothing to fight. So why am I fighting something now that I might not have to fight at all? So it just makes sense from a lot of levels. I know there's some people that find it annoying. I agree. But again, if you don't make it effective until December 1st, let's say, I think it's not going to harm anything. And it's one of those form over substance activities that occasionally you as elected officials have to engage in.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to bring this out favorably. There a motion? Councilwoman Hosky, is there a second? Councilman Bruno, is there any discussion? Councilman Cohen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having Lee just explain this, and I had a separate conversation with him, is I'd like to, if it's agreeable, to make an amendment. The amendment being that if this amendment to the city ordinance is approved tonight, that it only go into effect if the charter revision is approved. If not, then this is void. So this way, if there's no charter revision, we really don't need this. I understand that Lee needs this to do further work, if you will, but since we don't know the charter revision is going to pass or not, if it doesn't pass, then we really don't even need this. So my amendment, once again, is if charter revision doesn't pass, then this will also not be this will be null and void.
On my,
Just,
on my, go ahead, Chairman.
can we just mute a minute? Just a point of order. So, and I'm sorry, Councilwoman Hamilton, you may have been going down the same path I'm going down. So I'll defer.
Okay. So on the resolution, it is noted, sir. Thank you.
Oh, I didn't. Oh, I guess I didn't see the resolution. Okay.
Yeah,
Fair
I
enough.
haven't read it yet.
Oh,
Yeah, but
Sorry.
thank you. You're ahead of us. You're not
nope.
tired yet.
Sorry, everybody.
Attorneys. And every time we turn around, something was missed. We knew that we wanted to get this on the ballot. We knew the stipulations before. I think there was like 3 or 4 attorneys that were involved in this.
Robin, your first part was cut off. You were on mute. So I don't know if you're directing that to anybody.
Okay, Lee.
Oh, you directed that to me? I'm sorry.
Hey, Lee, and I'm sorry that I was muted.
I was able to utilize, I have an intern right now from the University of Connecticut Law School who has been assisting our office, and she was gracious enough to tackle this particular issue. In fact, I was hoping she would be here to present, because I like when my students have to actually be real lawyers and present their cases. She claimed that she had an illness. I wonder if the illness has to do with nerves, quite frankly, but we'll work on that. But she assisted this. So from the perspective of the city's expenditure thus far, our financial footprint on this is very, very low. We don't pay the intern any money in order for her to do work for us.
I can appreciate that. It's just that we spent money on several different attorneys, and it was still missed. That was my only point.
I'm comfortable with the charter revision. Look, I have an argument with the Secretary of State doesn't care about our legal arguments. They just want to put something on the ballot, and they see something and they say, and so we have a disagreement. Problem is, I can't resolve the disagreement prior to getting it on the ballot while there's COVID, while courts have limited access. So sometimes there are legal disputes over things, but this is a legal dispute that's worthwhile because of the amount of savings you have in the off year. This issue came up during charter revision. It wasn't missed, but we went forward because I'm comfortable going forward because of the goal. You could have said, no, we're not, we're going to change the whole charter, and I guess we'll give up on this idea of not having a year where there is an election. I didn't get the sense that the council wanted to give up on that idea. I certainly didn't get the sense that the council wanted to give up on those savings. So I'm very comfortable with what we passed with charter revision, which is probably the most expensive charter revision in the history of the state of Connecticut. So, I think it's fine. This issue was not missed. It was raised, it was discussed, and we decided we wanted to go forward. We do want to realize those savings if charter revision is passed.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. The Committee on Charter Revision is closed, and the time is now 9:10. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hamilton. Next committee is the Tax Deferral Committee, Councilman Massaro.
Communication G, Tax Deferral Committee, Councilman Hamilton, Councilman Cohen, Councilman Galliano, and Councilwoman O'Connor. At this time, I'm going to hold this communication for Adam Coles because not enough information was presented. And at the time, Leslie was not in the office, and it got by her desk without the proper information, so I'm going to hand it back to her. That's fine with everybody. Tax deferral is done at 9:11.
Thank you, Councilman Massaro. The next committee is the Health, Welfare, and Safety Committee, Councilman Bruno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, your Committee on Health and Welfare and Safety is now in session. The time is 9:11. Committee members present: Councilman Donovan, Councilwoman Johnston, Councilman Barry Cohen, myself acting as chair. Crystal Finelli is absent on vacation. Tonight we have Communication C from Director Maureen Lillis in regards to extending food license renewals due to COVID-19. I'm looking for a motion to approve. Thank you, Barry. Motion to approve. I need a second. I can't see half of you, I apologize. Do I have a second?
Councilman Donovan.
Thank you, Councilman Donovan, for your second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any extensions? Motion carries. Was there any opposed on that, Mr. Chairman?
Doesn't appear to be, Councilman Bruno.
Yeah, I apologize. I only have half of the view of the council. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Council.
Thank you, Councilman Bruno. Okay, we will come back together as the council. Committee meetings are finished. Next up is unfinished business. There is none. So we will have committee reports that the clerk could read Communication H into the record.
Communication H from a tax collector in regards to refund requests for the month of June 2020 will be filed with tonight's meeting minutes.
Thank you, Stacy. Okay, first committee to be heard from is the Finance Committee, Councilwoman Hosky.
Thank you. To the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your communication on finance, to whom was referred the matter of an ordinance authorizing the issuance of $6,313,100 bonds plus additional financing costs of the city to meet certain 2018, 2019, 2019, 2020, and 2020-2021 capital budget appropriations and pending the issuance, therefore the making of temporary borrowing for such purpose. Reports that the committee met on the 27th day of July 2020 to consider said matter. It is the majority's opinion, I said that right, opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. First reading, proposed bond ordinance provides for the following. Approves capital project bonds in a maximum amount of $6,313,000. It doesn't have the $100. Is that okay?
No, I would correct them and add the 100.
Amount of $6,313,100 plus costs of issuance to finance certain capital projects approved in the 2018, 2019, 2020, and the 2020-2021 capital budgets of the city in accordance with the requirements of Chapter 109 of the Connecticut General Statutes. Authorizes the mayor, the finance director, and the treasurer of the bond committee to sell the capital project bonds in a competitive or negotiated offering. Authorizes bonds to be issued pursuant to the terms of the city trust indenture. Authorizes bond committee to issue bond anticipation notes for short-term financing prior to the issuance of the bonds. Provides bond committee with the option to issue clean water fund obligations in the amount not to exceed $1,740,000 plus cost of issuance for the EPA consent decree and the sewer pump station upgrade projects. Authorizes the bond committee to take all necessary actions in connection with the capital project bonds, including actions relating to the tax-exempt nature of the bonds, the reimbursement of prior city capital expenditures, and those needed to satisfy post-issuance disclosure obligations. Authorizes the mayor, the finance director, and other duly authorized city officials to apply for grants for capital projects.
Councilwoman Hosky brought forward communication A from the finance director as read into the record in ordinance. I'm sorry, I'm getting feedback here.
Sorry.
Councilwoman Hosky has brought forward communication A from the finance director in regards to an ordinance authorizing the issuance of $6,313,100 bonds plus additional financing costs of the city to meet certain 1819, 1920, 2021 capital budget appropriations and pending the issuance thereof and making of temporary borrowings for such purpose. As Councilwoman Hosky has read into the record, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilman Cohen, Councilman Galignano, Councilman Bruno. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And that motion carries.
To the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Finance, to whom was referred the matter of the animal shelter donation, reports that the committee met on the 27th day of July 2020 to consider said matter. It is the majority's opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolved, that the following donation to the Department of Police Services be approved and deposited into line item 10100002885 animal shelter donations. From Rissa Mandolinsky in the amount of $15, Lucille Elaine $50, R.L. Heisner $5, Robert Petrillo Jr. $10, Marlene Betty $25, Gail Esposito $25, Joseph Garrison $50, Angela Russo $100, Florence Palermo $25, Raymond Dudley $30, Lake Phibbs $50.
Councilwoman Hosky has brought forward communication E from Chief Joseph Perno in regards to animal shelter donations. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilwoman O'Connor, Councilman Bruno. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Is there any opposed? Any abstentions? And that motion carries. Before you continue, Councilwoman Hosky, as a point of information and for the record, communication A for the bonding ordinance, first reading, the public hearing date will be August 24th at 6:55 p.m.
Thank you. Thank you. To the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Finance, to whom was referred the matter of a tentative agreement between the City of West Haven and the Allentown IA FFAFL-CIO Local 1198, reports that the committee met on the 27th day of July 2020 to consider said matter. It is the majority's opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolved, the City Council of the City of West Haven hereby authorizes Mayor sorry, Mayor Nancy R. Rossi to execute the attached tentative agreement between the City of West Haven, the Allentown IAFF-AFL-CIO Local 1198.
Councilman Hosky, did you say majority or unanimous opinion of the
What
committee?
did I say? I might have not said anything. I don't know, unanimous. The majority's opinion, but it should be unanimous.
Okay. All right, so Councilman Hosky's brought forward communication F from Commissioner Sabo in regards to a tentative agreement between the City of West Haven and the Allentown IAFF-AFL-CIO Local 1198. Is there a second?
So moved.
Councilman Galignano, Councilman Cohen, is there any discussion on the contract? Seeing none, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Anyone abstains? Okay, motion carried.
Excuse me,
Yes.
I saw a hand, but I'm not sure if it was an opposed or an approved.
Does anyone oppose the contract?
Okay, thank you.
Motion carried.
Am I on I? Yes. To the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Finance, to whom was referred the matter of the CDA manager, Mark Bisaccia, in regards to CDA program year 46 budget, reports that the committee met on the 27th day of July 2020 to consider said matter. It is the unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolved, the City Council of the City of West Haven hereby approves the attached CDA program year 46 budget as submitted.
Councilman Hosky has brought forward communication I from CDA manager Mark Bisaccia in regards to the CDA program year 46 budget. Is there a second? Second. Councilman Massaro, Councilman Galignano, Councilman Bruno. Is there any discussion? Councilwoman Hosky.
So I wanted to ask, and I forgot to ask when it was in my committee, about the administrative costs and where all the salaries don't seem to come out of the administrative costs. Is Frank still on here? Hi, Frank. So the general administration costs for the CDA is $162,634. And it's my understanding that Mark Bisaccia makes about $100,000 himself. Where do the other two workers get paid from? I know he has an admin, and then I don't know the title for John Bernardo. Where do their salaries all come from?
Yeah, since the CDA is funded through the federal funding, that never gets passed through the city. So I don't know where any of his budget lines flow through. My understanding is the CDA is funded entirely from federal monies.
No, right. So I'm just trying to understand, because this budget doesn't seem to have all of their salaries on it. And if this is for this year, then how are they paying everybody's salary?
Yeah,
Thank you.
I've never seen his budget.
Colleen, did you?
All their money does come from the federal budget. The federal government gives them some kind of formula that they use to determine who gets paid what. And the city does not pay any of their salaries. And I know this from being on the Citizens Advisory Committee.
No, I know the city doesn't pay for all of their funding. I know the city doesn't pay for any of their salaries. I'm trying to understand in the general administration. So if you can answer this, that would be great. The general administration, I'm assuming, is salary. If it's not salary, then what's $162,634 going to of general administration?
The general administration, to my knowledge, is their salary.
Right. So this is their funding. I know for my understanding that Mark makes about $100,000. There's two other workers in that office. I don't think they split $62,000.
Then that's not something I'm sure of. I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Oh, no, that's okay. I might have not asked it correctly. So I'll follow up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hossie. Yeah, in the packet, it says General Administration 162,634 to support salary, office expenses, et cetera, related to the administration of the Community Development Block Grant Program. But I understand your question. Is there any other discussion?
Do you have an answer?
Not at this time. Any other discussion? All right, the only comment I have, and I think that is a question that I think we need to have follow up to make sure that that general administration cost is accurate. So the total CDA budget is I believe it's 752,626, where 162,634 is administrative costs, which comes out to about 21.6%, which I think is high. So I thought Mark would be on the call tonight. He's not on the call tonight, but I really would like to see next year that number reduced, and really we get to a sweet spot of about 15% for administrative costs. That's typically, I think, if I'm going to give to an organization their administrative costs, I think the sweet spot is about 15% or less. So every dollar that we could save administratively is one more dollar that could go to a nonprofit or someone that could use it. So I'd really like to see that number come down for next year. Councilman Cohen?
Yeah, I share the same concern about the percentage, but also to Councilwoman Hoskey's point, 162,634 doesn't jive for three people, unless it's not administrative. But if you're going to be following up, I would also ask, because I don't see it here, is who pays for their health benefits? Because I don't see anything, if it's part of their total budget, I don't see where there's a health benefit line, unless the city pays for it, which I know they wouldn't pay for it. So where's that line item? If you're gonna follow up on that, if someone else wants to follow up on that as well, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, that was part of how do you pay it all?
Right. So yeah, so it's both the salary and the health benefit, because there's no health benefit listed, and to Bridget's point, something's not shaken out right here, or I'm misunderstanding something. So thank you. Thank you.
Someone else had a hand up. I thought I saw it. Councilman Bruno?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I do agree with you on that. What I did inquire on this, and the city does pick up the healthcare benefits on this general admission. So I did inquire on that. I believe the city picks up on that.
Can I answer?
I'm getting to you there, Mayor. Hang on. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. For me, okay, go ahead.
Yes.
When I first took office, indeed, the city was paying health benefits and other expenses. But when I read that that was a violation of our charter, because it clearly states not, there was some back and forth, and it ended up that we didn't pay it. In fact, we even had to reduce one of the employees' hours at the time, which now has been reinstated. I have been assured that we don't pay health benefits, but I will be asking tomorrow morning for a full accounting down to the penny, because once again, we are not supposed to be paying it. And to your point, Chairman, if there is funding there, we're supposed to do our best to minimize the expenditures so that the funding goes to the not-for-profits and to the people who need it most. So I will be asking first thing in the morning from Mr. Bisaccia a full accounting of everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Is there any further discussion? Councilwoman Hamilton?
Just a general question, with so much missing out of this, how comfortable are we to move forward on it? I feel that there's some big missing pieces on this. I'm not comfortable in voting on it. I don't know if anybody else is. Those are big questions. That's all.
So Lee, are you still on the line?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Frank, in Frank's office, Ray Delamura is the one who handles this particular account. He can provide a full accounting. I'm confident that the city isn't providing any significant money, that it is getting reimbursed by the feds. That doesn't go to the percentage of budget. The one part was correct that I couldn't tell you what the percentage of the budget is. I'd have to crunch the numbers. But Ray Delamura is the one who has all the books and all the property.
So Lee, you're on feedback. Colleen, are you able to ask a question? I think Mark, maybe Mark just jumped on the call.
I didn't hear the question, but I thought I saw that Mark jumped on. Because it does say Mark B.
Mark, are you on the meeting? Mark? So right now we have a motion on the floor to approve, and we're under discussion. So,
Can you hear me now?
yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, good. I'm sorry about it. I was on the meeting with my phone, but for some reason, it just was not connecting via audio. So now I went on with my computer.
Thank you, Mark. So there's a couple of questions from the council.
Clear everything up.
Yeah.
The salaries are picked up via 3 accounts: the general admin, the single-family rehab, plus the down payment assistance. What we do is, the bulk of my salary, of course, is general admin, but a portion of it does go to overseeing single-family rehab and down payment administration for administrative purposes, okay? So my hours that I go into those programs for are picked up via those programs, okay? And the same thing, the hours that John, of course, the housing specialist, spends the bulk of his time with single-family rehab. So the bulk of his salary comes out of the single-family rehab line item and the down payment assistance. And those hours that the administrative assistant does via those programs also get taken out of that account. So in other words, all 3 of these accounts are what fund everything, including the benefits. Okay, we pay everything right now.
And that's been consistent for the last at least 3 years, correct?
That's correct.
Does anyone else have any, Councilman Hamilton, did that answer your question, or you have a follow-up?
I'm not sure that I understood the answer. Are you saying that there's pieces of salaries that are on other line items?
Yes, the administration plus the single family rehab plus the down payment assistance all cover the salaries plus the benefits. Those are the items that cover those. We have separate pots of money that fund the actual loan program.
So like how much of, do you know offhand, do you have those figures with you of how much from each of those line items that you mentioned? Is there a percentage?
Yeah, it's based on hours. I would have to get you those particular sheets. Those are reviewed by the committee. But once again, all those three different accounts are covering all the administration for the CDA staff. So basically, you're looking at almost $300,000. Because you have the 162,634 plus the 104,369 plus the 68,893. Those are all covering the administration staff of CDA.
I don't even know what to ask. I'm a little confused.
What are you confused about?
Well, because I'm not hearing like how much, like, is there a percentage? Is there a dollar amount? We just know where to find. You're telling us where to, where those amounts are in, but I don't have any idea of how much it is.
Well, it's all based on the union contracts. Everybody has a certain salary. As Bridget Hosky mentioned, my salary is about $100,000. John Bernardo's about 60. Rosa's is about $50,000. Then you got to add in all the benefits, and so on and so forth. That's where we're getting the total of the $300,000.
I don't have any more questions. Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
Hey, Mark, this is Ron Quagliani. So what's the HUD ceiling for administrative costs? What percentage of the administrative costs could be towards the whole budget?
20% for general admin, but that's 20% of the overall budget plus program income.
So what would make this other salaries not general administration?
Well, what HUD allows us to do is to take salaries out of the programs that we offer. So in other words, the amount of time that John spends in single-family rehab, his salary plus benefits can be taken out of that single-family rehab line item. The amount of time that I spend on single-family rehab, I can take my salary and benefits out of the single-family rehab line item. And the same goes for the down payment assistance line item.
So before you got on the call, I was opining about the percentage of administrative costs that you have just based on the general administration, which is about 21%. And I would think that again, we would like to see that go down to 18 and then to 15 because
it's
that's
always below the 20%. We cannot go over 20%. And if you look back in 3 years history, HUD stays on us with that. We're always at between 17 and 19%. Once again, it's a combination of the 20% of the overall budget, which is 752, 626, but you've got to figure in the fact that we take in about $100,000 in program income a year also. So now you're talking it's 20% of $852,000.
I'm flipping the pages to see what the revenue lines are. Are the revenue lines identified in this document that you gave us?
If you look in the other spreadsheet document, it's not in the one-page document, it's in the multiple-page document. And if you look under single-family rehab, you will see $95,000 in income, then another $1,000 for multifamily rehabilitation. And once again, these are guesstimates because I'm putting together a budget, but I can safely tell you that we take in well in excess of $100,000 a year. I'm being conservative when I put that in. And we put down another $1,500 for the business facade program that we take in income.
Right, so that 17 to 20% is based off your total revenue that you get from HUD, and that's what you take in from the program.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for Mr. Bisaccia? Councilman Bruno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question. If we don't move on this, are we in jeopardy of losing any of this money coming from the federal government?
This is very time sensitive. I have to have both the 5-year plan and the PY 46 budget approved, because I have to send it into HUD on August 14th.
Are you all set, Councilman Bruno?
I am, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, Stacy, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman Gary Donovan,
Yes.
Councilwoman Colleen O'Connor,
I have to abstain.
Councilwoman Bridget Husky,
Yes.
Councilman William X. Conlon, you're on mute.
Sorry, I vote yes.
Thank you. Councilwoman Liz Johnston,
Yes.
Councilman Mitch Galignano,
Yes.
Councilwoman Robin Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilman Peter Massaro, you're on mute.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilwoman Trinae McGee,
Yes.
Councilman Robert Bruno,
Yes.
Councilman Barry Lee Cohen,
Yes.
and Chairman Ron Quagliani.
Yes. 12 yes, 0 no's, 1 absent. Correct, Stacy?
We have 11 yes, 1 abstain, and 1 absent.
Gotcha. Motion carries. Thank you.
I'm sorry, 1 second. To the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Finance, to whom was referred the matter of the transfer of funds for the Allentown Fire Department, reports that the committee met on the 27th day of July 2020 to be considered said matter. It is the unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolved, the City Council of the City of West Haven hereby approves the following transfer of funds. Account 1950010569999. Reserve deficit reduces $5,365. Account 1950010525530. Building maintenance increases by $5,365.
Councilwoman Hosky has brought forward communication K from the Director of Finance in regards to a transfer of funds for the Allentown Fire District. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilman Galignano, Massaro, Bruno. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries.
To the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Finance, to whom was referred the matter of a transfer of funds for the Allentown Fire Department reports that the committee met on the 27th day of July 2020 to consider said matter. It is the unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolved, the City Council of the City of West Haven hereby approves the following transfer of funds. Account 1950010521000, gas heating reduced by $2,000. Account 1950010523330, training and education reduced by $3,500. Account 1950003053400, medical supply reduced by $2,000. Oh, increased by $2,000, excuse me. And account 195003053250250, tools and miscellaneous equipment increases by $3,500.
Councilman Hoskins brought forward communication L from the Director of Finance in regards to a transfer of funds for the Allentown Fire District. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilwoman O'Connor, Councilman Cohen. Is there any discussion? Frank, just one point. This is for the FY20 budget, right?
That's correct.
So noted. Thank you.
All these transfers are for FY20.
Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? And that motion carries.
Thank you, Chairman. To the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Finance, to whom was referred the matter of a transfer of funds for the Emergency Reporting System, ERS, reports that the committee met on the 27th day of July 2020 to consider said matter. It is the unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolved, the City Council of the City of West Haven hereby approves the following transfer of funds. Account 1300010525510, maintenance services agreement reduced by $90,000. Account 35531000556670, other equipment increased by $90,000.
Councilwoman Hoskins brought forward communication M from the Director of Finance in regards to a transfer of funds for the Emergency Reporting System, ERS. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second, Councilman Bruno, Councilman Massaro. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? And that motion carries.
To the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Finance, to whom was referred the matter of the sale of 1 Forest Road, reports that the committee met on the 27th day of July 2020 to consider said matter. It is unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolved, the City Council of the City of West Haven hereby, in accordance with the City Council Rule 25B, approves and authorizes Mayor Nancy R. Rossi to sign and execute a contract between Park Commons LLC and the City of West Haven for the sale of 1 Forest Road for $325,000, generally pursuant to terms previously provided to this council.
Councilman Hoskins brought forward communication N from the Corporation Council in regards to the sale of 1 Forest Road. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilman Galignano, Massaro, Cohen. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Is there any opposed? Any abstentions? And that motion carries.
To the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Finance, to whom was referred the matter of a lease renewal between the City of West Haven and Prospect Beach Fish and Game Club Incorporated reports that the committee met on the 27th day of July, 2020, to consider said matter. It is unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolved. The City Council of the City of West Haven hereby approves the attached lease agreement between the City of West Haven and the Prospect Fish and Game Club Incorporated for a term not to exceed 5 years at the rate of $1 per year paid to the City of West Haven.
Councilwoman Hosky has brought forward Communication O from Corp Council in regards to a lease renewal between the City of West Haven and the Prospect Beach Fish and Game Club Incorporated. Is there a second?
So moved.
Second, Councilman Cohen, Massaro, Galignano. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor? I see many hands. Any opposed? You're in favor, Trinae, right? Okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, and that motion carries. Thank you.
Your committee on finance is done.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hosky. Next up is the Public Lands Committee, Councilman Donovan.
Thank you, Chairman Quagliani. Communication B from 6/22/2020 to the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven. Your Committee of Public Lands, to whom was referred to the matter of renaming Hubbard Nature and Recreation Center, reports that the committee met on the 27th day of July 2020 to consider said matter. It is the unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolved, the City Council of the City of West Haven hereby approves the renaming of Hubbard Nature and Recreation Center to Hubbard Farms Park.
Councilman Donovan's brought forward Communication B from the 6/22/20 agenda from Councilman Cohen in regards to renaming the Hubbard Nature and Recreation Center to Hubbard Farms Park. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Councilman Cohen. Is there any discussion? Councilman Cohen.
Thank you, everyone. I just would like to say on behalf of the Hubbard family and the association, all the surrounding neighbors that have worked so hard on revitalizing the park, they are so pleased for you to consider this name change, simply because as we approach our centennial next year, this name is so much more fitting of that park. And, you know, the Hubbard family resided on the West Shore area since 1817, and they purchased the homestead at 1 Hubbard Road, which was from the Merwins of Milford, meaning Merwin Avenue. So the history runs very deep. At one time, the family owned land on both sides of Hubbard Road, which extended to the railroad tracks on Marshall Road to Orange. Hubbard Farm was established well before West Haven became an official city and was originally part of Orange. The once expansive property became known as Hubbard Farms as it rotated ownership between Orange, Milford, and today West Haven. To this day, and I'm one of these to this days, many current and former Westies continue to call the immediate area in and around the park Hubbard Farms. The area evokes some of their fondest memories and mine, such as the skating pond, hitting the hiking trails, and countless childhood adventures. On behalf of all the people involved with Hubbard Park, all the city officials involved with Hubbard Park, I would like to give you my heartfelt thanks, and we thank you for your continued partnership to revitalize this historic city landmark. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Cohen, for your hard work on that park. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? And that motion carries.
Thank you, Chairman Quigley. Also have Communication H from June 22nd, 2020 to the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven. Your Committee on Public Lands, to whom was referred the matter of renaming 3rd Avenue Park, reports that the committee met on the 27th day of July 2020 to consider said matter. It is the unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolved, the City Council of the City of West Haven hereby approves the renaming of Third Avenue Park to Chamber of Commerce Ralph Eberly Park.
Councilman Donovan's brought forward communication H from the 6/22/20 agenda from Mayor Nancy R. Rossi in regards to the renaming of Third Avenue Park to Chamber of Commerce Ralph Eberly Park. Is there a second?
So moved.
Second, Councilwoman O'Connor, Councilman Galignano, many others. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I would just like to quickly comment that I want to thank the mayor, State Representative Boer, for bringing this communication forward, the Park and Rec Commission for approving it. I had the honor of serving with Ralph Eberly for a few of the years that he was on the council. He was on the council from 2013 to 2017 until his untimely death. Ralph was all about the community. It's fitting that that particular park is named after him, coming from Third Avenue and often spending time at that park. He was served in the PTA. He was the PTA council president. And if you knew Ralph, you know he cared about family. He cared about the community. He cared about his district, and he cared about the children of this community. So I'm personally pleased that I'm sitting on the council that will be able to cast my vote in favor of changing the name of the park in his honor. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Is there any opposed? None opposed, any abstentions? And that motion carries. You're all set, Councilman Donovan?
I apologize. Yes, that concludes the public.
Thank you, Councilman Donovan. Next committee is the Legislative Matters Committee, Councilman Galignano.
Mr. Chairman, I'm kind of confused, actually. Don't we have to have a first reading for my first communication D? You're muted, Mr. Chairman.
It's no excuse. You should be able to hear what I said. Do you have a copy of the resolution, Councilman? Because that would be the first reading.
I do have a copy in my hand, so am I to read that tonight?
Yes, that would be the first reading.
Oh, that's all? You mean this big, long 4-page thing that I have to read?
No, it just could be one page. It's the resolution. If you don't have the resolution, Stacy would have it and she could read it for you.
Oh, okay, here's the resolution. I'll read it right here. To the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Legislative Matters, to whom was referred the matter, and an ordinance amending Chapter 81, Building Department Fees. Reports that the committee met on the 27th day of July, 2020, to consider said matter. It is the unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. First reading. The proposed edit to the city ordinance contained in Chapter 81 Building Department will achieve the following. 1. Remove outdated and obsolete language. 2. Address an internet security fault caused by outdated software. 3. Provide an enhanced remote customer access in response to social distancing requirements. 4. Relieve the paper file storage burden and cost. 5. Increase building permit fees in part to fund the required IT upgrade and digital storage demands. 6. Provide for a penalty and citation appeals mechanism for persons working without the benefit of permits and inspections. 7. Memorialize existing business practices not covered in the previous ordinance. 8. Enhance compliance with the National Flood Insurance Program by providing outreach and education opportunities to promote flood insurance in areas vulnerable to disaster. 9, increase the fee revenue to the general fund to support the city's overall operational overhead related to staff increases in building department. Set public hearing date, August 24th, 6:50 PM.
Councilman Galignano has brought forward communication D from Douglas Coulter in regards to an ordinance amending Chapter 81 Building Department Fees. Is there a second? Councilman Donovan, Bruno, Massaro, O'Connor. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries, and the public hearing will be August 24th at 6:50 PM.
Then I have communication G from the 6/22/20 agenda, Councilman Massaro, regarding amended city ordinance 156-2 subsection B. Do I need to reread what I read before, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, this will be the second reading, yes.
The original, I'm looking to change section 156-2 subsection B. Original section states each non-resident owner or agent in charge shall pay a fee of $25 for each initial registration and a fee of $10 for each notice of residential address change. The change section will state each non-resident or agent in charge shall pay a fee of $100 for each initial registration and a fee of $20 for each notice of residential address change. This will be a yearly practice to the city.
Councilman Galignano has brought forward communication G from the 6/22/20 agenda from Councilman Massaro in regards to amending City Ordinance 156-2, subsection B. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Massaro. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? No one opposed. Any abstentions? No abstentions. That motion carries.
That concludes your business of legislative matters, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Galignano. Next committee is the Personnel and Civil Service Committee. That'd be Councilman Massaro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Personal and Civil Service, to whom it was referred to the matter of an appointment of Paul A. Sikorsky, Jr. to the West Haven Allentown Fire Commission. The report of this committee was met on the 27th day of July of 2020 to consider the said matter. It was unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion to be presented. Resolution. The appointment of Paul A. Sikorsky, Jr. of 65 Orange Terrace, West Haven, to the West Haven Allentown Board of Fire Commissioners effective immediately to the expire on June 30th of 2025 to replace John Panza to be approved.
Councilman Massaro has brought forward communication B from Mayor Nancy R. Rossi in regards to the appointment of Paul A. Sikorsky Jr. to the West Haven Allentown Board of Fire Commissioners. Is there a second?
So moved.
Second, Councilman Hamilton and others. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Any opposed? No opposed. Any abstentions? No abstentions. That motion carries. You all set, Councilman Massaro?
Oh, I'm sorry. That concludes the Personnel and Civil Service matter.
Thank you, Councilman Massaro. Next up is the Charter Revision Committee, Councilwoman Hamilton.
The Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Charter Revision, to whom was referred the matter of an amendment to City Ordinance Chapter 6, Section 2, Veterans Advisory Committee. Reports that the committee met on the 27th day of July 2020 to consider said matter. It is the unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. First reading, Chapter 6, Local Veterans Advisory Committee. 6-2, composition, elections, terms, alternates, officers, and compensation. The local Veterans Advisory Committee shall be comprised of 5 regular members and 2 alternate members. Each member shall either reside in the city of West Haven or have his or her regular place of business or employment in the city. The members shall be elected by the electors of the city of West Haven. Regular members of the Veterans Local Advisory Committees first elected shall be designated to serve for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 years, respectively, and therefore shall be elected annually to serve for 5 years. Any vacancies shall be filled in the same manner as originally elected. B, alternate members of the committee first elected shall be designated to serve for 1 and 2 years retrospectively, and therefore shall be elected to serve 5 years. Said alternate members shall serve on the committee in the absence of a regular member, and when doing so, shall act with the full power and authority of a regular member. Any vacancies shall be filled in the same manner as originally elected. C, said committee shall select from its members a chairman, a secretary, who shall serve for 1 year. D, all members of said committee shall serve without compensation. The city council further stipulates that it is the ordinance change shall not take effect until successfully passage of the charter revision document slated for November 3rd, 2020 ballot.
Councilwoman Hamilton has brought forward Communication J from Corporation Counsel in regards to an ordinance amending Chapter 6, Veterans Advisory Committee. Is there a second? Councilman Bruno, Massaro, Galignano. Is there any discussion? Councilwoman O'Connor.
Sorry. Hello? Sorry, my mute button didn't work. I just wanted to make sure I had this right in my head. The easy way of saying this is the state wants West Haven to have an election in 2023, so that's why we're passing this ordinance.
Well, I think the idea is in order to have the charter revision question appear on the ballot, the Secretary of State mandates that we have an election biennially. So this is the workaround to make sure that we could fulfill our obligation and put the charter revision question on the ballot. If charter revision should pass, then the Corporation Council has suggested that he would work to try to change that biennial requirement and make it quadrennial, as the charter revision's intention was.
Okay, that clarified it. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Is there anyone opposed? I don't see any opposition. Is there any abstentions? I don't see any of those either. The motion passes.
That concludes your Committee on Charter Revision. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hamilton. And the public hearing for that will be August 24th at 6:45 p.m. Next up is the Tax Deferral Committee, Councilman Massaro.
Mr. Chairman, we're holding this on committee for more information.
Thank you, Councilman Massaro. Next committee is the Health, Welfare, and Safety Committee, Councilman Bruno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Health, Welfare, and Safety, to whom was referred the matter of extending food license renewals due to COVID-19. Reports that the committee met on the 27th day of July 2020 to consider said matter. It is unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolves, the City Council of the City of West Haven hereby authorizes the Director of Health to extend the due dates for food license renewals and payments to September 1, 2020. That concludes that, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Bruno has brought forward Communication C from Health Director Maureen Lillis in regards to extending the food license renewals due to COVID-19. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilman Cohen, Councilwoman O'Connor. Is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Don't see any opposition. Any abstentions? No abstentions. That motion carries. All set, Councilman Bruno?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, all set, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, action, adoption of ordinances previously presented. There are none. Are there any council liaison reports? Councilwoman O'Connor.
Last Tuesday, the library met with a company that's going to be doing the library survey. COVID has given some unique challenges so that we could speak to everyone that they want to, but at least we have step one, and the survey is on its way. And that's all I have to say on that.
Thank you, Councilwoman O'Connor. Councilwoman Johnston.
Yeah, I don't know how much of this to report because it's available online, but the Board of Ed met and discussed all the myriad issues they're faced with right now. Sounds like they have a really good handle on their plans. If I'm correct, it sounded like they were leaning towards the hybrid plan for returning pending state approval. I mean, Governor Lamont said he's not making that decision until mid-August. But they highlighted all parts of that plan. They talked about a couple of things like they got a waiver to instead of 180 days, there were 3 days chopped off of that. So the kids are actually starting after Labor Day, if in fact they go back in person. But either way, it's a later start. And just, they talked about the survey that they put out to families. They talked about their all the provisions they're taking if they do return, between the extra sanitizing stations, the cohort model where the kids stay in one room as opposed to shifting, and then the hybrid model, which has fewer kids in the building. So, I mean, all of that's available, but sounds like they've all been working pretty hard on those plans. So.
Thank you, Councilwoman Johnston. Before I ask anyone else for any other new business, we did miss a letter for public comment that I'd ask Stacy if she could read it into the record at this time.
Sure, Chairman. Just let me sign on and grab it again. So Ron, I just have Chairman, I have a quick question. There's a first part of this and a second part. Am I reading just the second part?
Yes, just the actual letter.
Okay. Okay, so this is from Sophia C. Ferraro from 57 Wilson Avenue, and it's Dear Representative Michael DeMassa. I write asking you to oppose any changes to or elimination of qualified immunity for West Haven Police Department law enforcement officers. As a concerned West Haven resident taxpayer, qualified immunity protects officers and the public. It often eliminates frivolous or meritless lawsuits that do not clearly violate a person's constitutional rights. Changing or eliminating qualified immunity will result in more litigation, more high-paying settlements, and jury verdicts, and ultimately, it will make West Haven a more expensive place to live and do business. It will do little or nothing to advance justice, and it will undermine public safety. Moreover, it does nothing to address or eliminate what happened to folks like George Floyd. We need meaningful changes that allow the public to remove problem officers and possibly obtain access to police discipline records. Frankly, I haven't heard much about these types of changes that might have prevented George Floyd's death. Thanking you in advance, Sophia Ferraro.
Stacy. New business. Councilwoman Hamilton, and then we'll go to Councilwoman O'Connor.
One of the letters spoke about the police department and the vehicle situation. Mr. Chairman, can the council send a letter to the police department asking them for an updated status on that incident?
Sure, we could send a letter. So you're talking about the investigation regarding the vehicle that from that July incident, right, on Sawmill Road?
Yes.
Yeah, we could do that. You just want to ask what the status of the investigation is?
Yes, please. I think the public would like to know, and the council would like to know too. I have something else, if that's okay.
Sure, please.
I got an email from Brandon Patterson today. Him and some local artists are looking for a location to put a Black Lives Matter mural somewhere, and he's working with Public Works. And I would like to know, how can the council help him locate that area, or a location where that would be feasible.
Mayor, I don't want to put you on the spot. I don't really know if the council has any requirement to approve something like that or not, if it was on something of like a city street, or is that what you're thinking about, Councilwoman Hamilton?
He just said a location. He did show pictures of certain, what other cities are doing. If you could just tell me where he can have this conversation at, or to move forward.
Well, I can check with Lee. I don't know if he's still on the call to find out. One thing I do want to, they'll make sure everyone knows that if one organization does something on the city street, I don't know if he's looking to do something semi-permanent, similar, to different things that have happened. Additionally, other organizations then can too, because the only time we've ever painted anything on a street that I'm aware of, and I could be wrong, was a city-sponsored event. So for instance, the Italian of the Year, Irishman, Hispanic of the Year, that type of thing. So I'd be happy to discuss it with Lee and find out, what we can and cannot do, and then get back to you.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all, thanks.
Okay, Councilwoman Hamilton. Councilwoman O'Connor?
One of our citizens on the corner of Bloom and Second Avenue has asked me to publicly thank the West Haven City Youth Program for cleaning up that end of Second Avenue. Because of the construction going on down there, they faced some unique traffic challenges this year. So it was really nice, and she was ecstatic that these kids went down and picked up all the trash that's been accumulating because of the extra traffic. And I could say that everyone in the area was really happy that they did that. So I just wanted to publicly thank them. That's it.
You're on mute, Ron.
Councilman Conlon?
Oh, thank you, Chairman. Regarding the renaming of the park on Third Avenue, I request that the clerk send a communication to the Parks and Recs suggesting that the reference to the Chamber of Commerce be dropped and that the park be named solely for the late Councilman Everly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Conlon. Does anybody have any opposition to that? Council, no? Mayor?
I have no opposition. I would like to see that happen. I don't want to delay this, though, for a length of time, so I don't know when Park Rec meets. But I was kind of surprised to find out when I did go back in the minutes and looked at everything that they had the Chamber of Commerce there. And nothing against the Chamber of Commerce, but I agree with Councilman Conlon. I would rather just see it be the Ralph Elley Park. So maybe Councilman Donovan can help us because he was on Park Rec. I mean, I don't know when they meet again, but I would like to, I just don't want this to get lost. We're almost there type of thing. So, but I do agree. If we can remove that, I think that would be ideal.
Yeah, I think there was, I think the council concurs. So we don't want to hold up the actual renaming. So we renamed it, tonight, and then we could send a follow-up communication for the Park and Rec's next meeting for their consideration. Councilwoman Donovan?
Yeah, I'm not sure when they're going to have their next meeting. It may not be till September or October. I can email Mr. Coyle, who is the chairman, and see if they can do an email vote. That's what they've done in the past. And hopefully we can get that done within a week. And I can have it all set for the next meeting unless they're going to do some dedication prior to that.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman Donovan. Councilman Cohen, did you have something?
Actually, just to back up a step, I know that's exactly to Councilman Donovan's point, what they did with Hubbard Park. They basically just did an email thing. They got it back in a few days, so it shouldn't be too bad. But I did have actually from my constituents, I had a couple of questions, and I guess I'm going to ask. Whoops! I guess I'm going to ask the mayor if she can respond. The general question is: do we have any idea? And I know that you meet regularly with Park and Rec with Mark Payne, when they might be opening up some of the playground areas again. Has there been any discussion on that?
No, there hasn't been. And it's not only Mark Payne. Normally, these things are run by Maureen Lillis. One thing I do want to interject so that people know, because you just reminded me of something. We are looking to do what we call a soft opening for City Hall beginning on August the 5th. It will only involve 4 offices, all located on the first floor, appointments only. We will be releasing a press release tomorrow or Wednesday giving details. Anyone will have to make an appointment ahead of time. They will have to bring an ID. They will have to sign in, sign out. And they will have to wear a mask and have their temperature taken and sanitize their hands when they come in and when they leave. So we're trying, that'll be tax collection, tax assessment, building department, and the city clerk's office. And anybody can just stay on the first floor. But you reminded me of that, Councilman Cohen, when you talked about reopen, even though it was a different direction, but I wanted to make sure I was aware.
You're absolutely right, because honestly, Mayor, that was my second question. Do you have any idea about City Hall? That was my two questions. So the first one is, we still don't know about the playgrounds, and the second one is, you've answered it for me. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Cohen. Does anyone else have any new business? Councilwoman Hosky?
So I have one question from the mayor. Do you know when you're going to be appointing and backfilling the opening on the Park and Rec Commission? I know it's...
I am that shortly. It's not only Park and Rec. There are many appointments that have to be done, whether they need city council approval or some of them don't. So unfortunately, every day there's some new disaster. Today was no different. So I will do my best to get that in the next few weeks. All the appointments, I want to get up to date. Then I'm also going through the list, and I will be asking for the council and anyone out there looking for a lot of vacancies. And, everybody focuses in on 2 or 3 boards and commissions, and then, no one looks like any further, unfortunately. And all of the boards and commissions are equally important to West Haven. And they're all good. I mean, they're volunteer positions, I know, but they're very, very important.
No, and I understand that, but we just did the fire commission, and that just expired, and he's been backfilled already, but the Park and Rec has been open. So I'm just waiting.
I have had Mr. Zaborski's resume for well over a year. I don't have the exact date. So we were ready for that one. I agree. And as I said, I'm doing my best, but appointments do take a lot of time, and I want to make sure that I get them right. So once again, I will be going through them. And I also, as I said, will be compiling a list to have, whether we put it in the voice, because unfortunately, as I said, some people they want only one commission if they don't get that. And that's one thing I'm going to be asking for in the future. If somebody applies for commission, give me 1 or 2 choices as opposed to just, I want this. Because then if they don't get that, most of the time people have walked away. Like if they didn't get, the one, or there wasn't a vacancy for the one person. I had one that was actually on the city council a while, and when he didn't vote it in for that one position, I offered him something else, and it never got back.
So the other thing that I wanted to mention, Chairman, is that I had a constituent mentioned about the emails that they had sent in regards to the West Haven PD and other requests for public announcements and a public statement that they were making at the police commission meeting this week. And for whatever reason, they were under the impression that they would be read into public record. I had advised them that that's not the case, that if you want to send something, have it read into the public record for the city council meeting, you have to put that on the email. But I did say that I would make sure and send a reminder that the city council read those emails to just see what the residents are telling us about those situations and their feelings. I'm pretty sure we have all seen them and read them, but I just wanted to reiterate that I told them that I would say something. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hosky. Councilwoman Hamilton.
Trinae has something to say. She can't really see us, but she can hear us. If you can recognize her.
Oh, sure. Councilwoman McGee.
Thank you. My camera blinked out. I just want to thank every single person who's been a part of renovating Nike's site. It looks amazing. This morning, I woke up to over 100 messages from people in West Haven and New Haven. There was even one guy, I think he was from Meriden, and he's trying to find his way to go play on the court. But they're so excited. Guys said they're coming out of retirement. They're getting a game going. Of course, I encourage them to register to vote. You know, in order to get on the court, you got to vote. But anyway, courts are symbolic of so many different things: brotherhood, relationship, community. And when people see things within their community renovated or newly restored or whatever, you know, it goes to show that they care, that they matter, that they're of value. And so I think this time right now, like, that's more important than anything with all the pain and trauma and things that we've experienced. So I just want to thank every single person whose hands are involved in that process, and I can't wait until it's done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman McGee. Is there anyone else that has any new business? Mayor Rossi.
That Councilwoman McGee, that was a dream of mine from when I was on the council myself, when I first went there. And actually, I brought Mike Last and Tom McCarthy because they were both on the council years later. And I'm not done yet. I want some sort of playscape or something over there. Eventually, there was one years ago, but it fell into disrepair and it was a filthy mess. And so it was so broken and dilapidated that it was just, you know, the best thing to do was take it down, fixing it. So that, along with the basketball courts, because I had a tug of war in the past. Unfortunately, somebody had decided to take down the nets because one of somebody left garbage there or something. So I've had many, pushing for that area, and it's going to be so much better than it was. But I thank you so much because, again, once we get it, when we're completely done, we're going to have like a ribbon cutting and everything, and we will invite the council to that because I'm pretty excited about it. That's my district also. It's Councilwoman McGee's district, and I'm pretty excited. When I say district, it's a district in which I live. Obviously, I represent the whole city now, but it's a district in which I live. So thank you for that, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Cohen?
I just wanted to add my 2 cents. Right across the street from the Nike site is District 10 and Ellen Drive. I have gotten, I would say, almost everyone in that circle calling me. I've been keeping them abreast of once it passed, and a couple of our District 10s on Bull Hill Lane. They are absolutely ecstatic, and they can't wait for the dog park. They can't wait for the whole Megillah. Okay, and so again, everyone rocks on this. Thank you so much. And I just wanted to echo that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Cohen. Is there any other new business for this evening? No? Okay. Seeing none, I want to thank you all very much for your attention, and I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Councilman Galignano, seconded by Councilwoman O'Connor, and we're adjourned. Good night, everybody.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night.
Yeah.